Hello, wonderful people. Welcome to another Harry, your story destination. We have an absolute treat for you today. What if Gomez challenged the ministry for Harry's custody after finding evidence of abuse? If you're enjoying these stories, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support keeps the stories coming. With that said, let the adventure begin. Chapter 1, The Boy in the Cupboard. Gomez Adams strode through London's foggy streets, twirling his walking stick with infectious enthusiasm. The cobblestones practically vibrated beneath his polished shoes as he hummed an upbeat funeral march. His pinstriped suit stood out sharply against the drab business attire of passing bankers, who gave him a wide berth. Magnificent day for business with goblins, he announced to no one in particular, checking his pocket watch. Nothing like the sweet smell of ancient financial institutions in the morning. A nearby businessman quickened his pace, clutching his briefcase tighter. Gomez chuckled and veered suddenly down an alleyway that most Londoners somehow never noticed. The brick wall at its end rippled like water as he approached, then solidified behind him once he passed through. The secret entrance to Diagon Alley always gave him a thrill, so much more dramatic than the American magical districts with their mundane department store facades. The white marble columns of Gringotts loomed ahead. Unlike the hesitant wizards who approached the bank with nervous deference, Gomez bounded up the steps two at a time, nodding cheerfully to the goblin guards who recognized him immediately. "Mr. Adams," growled the head teller, not bothering to look up from his ledger. "You're early. Punctuality. Second best virtue after extravagance," Gomez declared, slapping his hand on the counter. "I've come about the Borgin matter. That cursed music box belongs in the Adams collection, family history and all that. Quite sure it was Great-Aunt Cleopatra's before she lost her head over that mummy." The goblin finally looked up, revealing a tight, toothy smile. "Director Ragnarok anticipated your interest. Follow me." 3 hours and several dramatic negotiations later, including Gomez enthusiastically kissing the blade of a goblin ceremonial dagger and signing a contract in his own blood, he emerged from Gringotts with coordinates to a cursed object that had apparently migrated from Borgin and Berks to a Muggle neighborhood of all places. "Surrey!" Gomez exclaimed, examining the parchment. "How extraordinarily ordinary." With a dramatic spin and click of his heels, Gomez disapparated, reappearing behind a hedge in an aggressively uniformed neighborhood. He consulted the tracking charm on the parchment, which glowed and pointed toward a house marked number 4. "Privet Drive," he muttered, wrinkling his nose at the meticulously trimmed lawns. Morticia would wither at the sight. Not a single deadly nightshade to be found. Gomez approached the house cautiously, not out of fear, but professional courtesy. Cursed objects deserved proper respect before collection. As he neared the property line, his enchanted pocket watch began to vibrate. He pulled it out, watching as the hands spun wildly before pointing not to the house itself but toward the cupboard under the stairs. Gomez frowned, tapping the watch. Curious hiding place for a malevolent music box. He slipped around to the side of the house, ducking below window level with the natural grace of a man who regularly fenced on balcony railings for fun. A quick charm revealed the residence locations: 2 adults and a large child in the kitchen, and a smaller presence in exactly the spot his watch indicated, the cupboard. Perhaps a house elf? Gomez wondered aloud, his curiosity piqued. With a flick of his wand, the back door's lock clicked open. Gomez entered, moving silently across the kitchen tiles. The 3 Dursleys remained absorbed in their television program, the adults praising the child as he demanded more dessert. Gomez's nose wrinkled at the pedestrian domestic scene, so unlike the passionate chaos of his own family dinners. He slipped past them unseen and approached the cupboard under the stairs. His watch now vibrated so intensely it nearly jumped from his hand. But the magical signature felt wrong for a cursed music box, less like concentrated malevolence and more like suppressed magic. Gomez whispered, placing his hand against the cupboard door. The lock clicked open at his touch. The door swung inward to reveal a small, dark space with a threadbare mattress on the floor. And on that mattress sat a thin boy with broken glasses, messy black hair, and startled green eyes. Not a cursed object. A cursed life. Gomez froze, rare shock stealing his usual exuberance. The boy stared back, fear and confusion warring on his face. "Are you here to take me away?" the boy whispered, his voice small but tinged with desperate hope. Before Gomez could answer, heavy footsteps approached from the kitchen. "Boy! Who are you talking to?" A large, purple-faced man appeared in the hallway, stopping short at the sight of Gomez. "Who the devil are you? How did you get in my house?" Gomez straightened to his full height, mustache quivering with barely controlled emotion. "The name is Gomez Adams." He gave a slight bow that somehow managed to be both courtly and threatening. "And I believe I've found something far more interesting than what I came for." "Get out!" Vernon Dursley bellowed, face purpling further. "Before I call the police." Gomez twirled his walking stick casually. "The authorities." "Excellent idea. I'm sure they'd be fascinated by your storage arrangements for children." Vernon paled slightly, glancing nervously at the cupboard. This is family business. The boy's our nephew. Troubled case. Is he indeed? Gomez peered back at Harry, noting the lightning-shaped scar partially hidden under his fringe. Recognition dawned instantly. Great Aunt Calpurnia's ghost. "You're Harry Potter." Harry's eyes widened. "You know me?" "Get out." Vernon lunged forward, grabbing for Gomez's collar. Gomez sidestepped with balletic grace, leaving Vernon grasping at air. "I find myself uncharacteristically outraged," Gomez announced, sounding almost surprised at himself. "An Adams feels many things, ecstasy, despair, homicidal delight, but righteous indignation is quite new." He turned to Harry, extending his hand. "Young man, would you mind stepping out here? The lighting is better for introductions." Harry hesitated, then took Gomez's hand, allowing himself to be guided out of the cupboard. In the hallway light, Gomez could see faded bruises on the boy's arms and the pronounced thinness of his frame. His clothing hung from him like circus tents, clearly hand-me-downs from someone much larger. "This is preposterous," Gomez muttered, genuine anger building. Harry Potter, savior of the wizarding world, living in a cupboard and dressed like Lurch before his growth spurt. "You know about that?" Harry whispered, glancing fearfully at his uncle. "Don't you dare speak of your freakishness in my house." Vernon hissed, even as he kept his distance from the strangely intimidating visitor. Gomez's expression darkened. "Sir, I've been called many things. Lunatic. Madman. Deranged menace to property values. But never have I been so insulted as to be mistaken for someone who looks down on the magical." With a swift movement, he drew his wand. Vernon backpedaled so quickly he slammed into the wall. "You're one of them." Proudly, Gomez confirmed. "Though I find myself questioning what them I share with whoever left this boy in your dubious care." Harry watched the exchange with growing bewilderment and hope. "You're a wizard too. Like me?" "Indeed. Though perhaps a different vintage. American magical families have their own flair." Gomez spun his wand between his fingers, shooting out colorful sparks that formed the shape of a small dancing skeleton before dissipating. "The Addams family has practiced magic since before the Salem trials, which, I might add, 3 of my ancestors greatly enjoyed attending." As the accused, Vernon had backed up against the wall, while Petunia and Dudley cowered in the kitchen doorway. "We never wanted him," Petunia spat. "He was dumped on our doorstep. We were told to keep him safe, not happy." "Doorstep?" Gomez's eyebrows shot up. "You mean to tell me Harry Potter was delivered like a bottle of milk?" "There was a letter," Petunia admitted reluctantly. "From that Dumbledore man." Gomez's expression shifted from outrage to calculation. "Albus Dumbledore placed him here." "Interesting. Very interesting." He turned back to Harry. "Young man, what do you know of your magical heritage?" "Nothing," Harry admitted. "They told me my parents died in a car crash and, car crash." Gomez actually jumped in shock, his feet clearing the ground by several inches. "James and Lily Potter? In a Muggle automobile accident? Preposterous. Outrageous. Nearly as absurd as Cousin Itt's temporary diet. They were freaks who got themselves blown up. Vernon found his courage again. And we got stuck with him." Gomez's wand twitched, and Vernon's mouth sealed itself shut, his lips seemingly melded together. Vernon made muffled noises of panic, pawing at his face. "Temporary improvement," Gomez noted cheerfully. "Now, Harry Potter, I believe we have much to discuss, preferably elsewhere." He glanced around the aggressively normal house with visible distaste. "This place gives me hives. Not the enjoyable kind that Morticia's poison ivy tea produces, mind you." Harry looked torn between terror and desperate hope. "You want me to go with you? But I don't even know you." "Fair point. Excellently cautious." Gomez beamed approvingly. "Gomez Adams, at your service." He performed an elaborate bow. "Husband to Morticia, father to Wednesday and Pugsley, descendant of a long line of Adamses who've practiced the darker and more amusing arts for generations." "But why would you help me?" Harry asked. "Why?" Gomez looked genuinely puzzled by the question. "Because you're a child in a cupboard. Because you're being kept from your birthright. Because," he paused, twirling his mustache thoughtfully. "Actually, there may be a family connection. The Potters were an old magical line. I must consult the blood records in our library. Morticia would know, she keeps track of which families we've intermarried with or feuded with. Sometimes both. Those make for the most exciting family reunions." Harry didn't look entirely convinced. Gomez softened slightly, kneeling to Harry's level. "Young man, I understand your caution. But I assure you, no wizard child should live in a cupboard. My family has its eccentricities, my daughter keeps guillotines as pets, and my son collects explosives, but we understand the value of proper dungeons and towers for growing magical minds." Petunia made a strangled sound. "You'd want me?" Harry asked, his voice small. "Want you?" Gomez looked shocked at the question. "My boy, you're Harry Potter. More importantly, you're a magical child being mistreated by those who fear what they don't understand. If there's one thing Adamses love, it's adoption. Half our family came to us through glorious accidents and mysterious appearances." The hope in Harry's eyes grew. "Could I really leave?" "Well," Gomez frowned, twirling his mustache, "there are legal complications. You were placed here by Dumbledore, and wizard bureaucracy can be tediously persistent. But..." His face brightened. "The Addams family specializes in complications. We thrive on them. Legal battles are like fencing, all the fun of mortal combat with the added excitement of paperwork." He stood and extended his hand to Harry. "What do you say? Ready for an adventure?" Harry hesitated only a moment before taking Gomez's hand. "Yes, sir." "Marvelous. Though please, never, sir. Makes me look for my father's ghost." Gomez's grin widened. "Now, I believe we'll need your belongings." Harry glanced back at the cupboard. "I don't have much." "Not to worry. Wednesday outgrew her collection of venomous spiders, and I'm sure we can find you plenty of suitable possessions." He peered into the cupboard, waving his wand to collect the few ragged clothes and broken toys into a conjured suitcase. "Perhaps we'll stop for a proper wardrobe. Nothing says fresh start like a miniature tailored suit." Vernon had managed to claw at his sealed lips enough to create a small opening. "You can't take him," he gurgled through barely parted lips. "The freak said he has to stay." "Ah, so there's more to this arrangement," Gomez said thoughtfully. He waved his wand in an intricate pattern, and glowing lines appeared throughout the house, centering on Harry. Blood wards. Fascinating and rather primitive. They're feeding off your connection to your aunt, but they're weakened, from lack of genuine care, I'd wager. He studied the magical lines thoughtfully. This complicates things legally, but makes them far more interesting. I do love a proper magical custody battle. We haven't had one in the family since great-uncle Vlad contested ownership of his pet werewolf. Petunia found her voice. If you take him, we'll be rid of all this abnormality for good. I wouldn't count on that, Gomez replied cheerfully. Magical custody disputes tend to involve family curses, ancestral hauntings, and the occasional visit from extradimensional beings with excellent legal training. Quite disruptive to suburban tranquility. He reached into his suit pocket and withdrew a silver calling card case adorned with writhing serpents. He extracted a black card embossed with crimson letters and handed it to Petunia. My card. Our family lawyer will be in touch. You might notice it trying to bite, just stroke the edge counterclockwise to calm it down. Petunia took it between two fingers as if handling something dead. Come along, Harry, Gomez said, placing a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. We have much to do. First, a proper meal. You're alarmingly underweight. Then, legal strategizing. Nothing builds an appetite like plotting against bureaucracy. Harry looked up at him. Are you really going to help me? My dear boy, Gomez said, his usually manic expression softening, and Adams never abandons a child in need. It's one of our few firm moral principles, along with never dance the mamushka half-heartedly and always respect creatures that can devour you whole. With that, he guided Harry toward the door, only to pause and turn back to Vernon. Almost forgot. He flicked his wand, and Vernon's lips unsealed themselves. There's a counterhex for everything. Except perhaps my mother-in-law's cooking. As they stepped out into the afternoon sunshine, Harry squinted, unaccustomed to the brightness. Mr. Adams, Gomez, please. Gomez, Harry corrected, won't you get in trouble? For taking me, I mean. Gomez laughed, a boisterous sound that startled birds from a nearby tree. Trouble? My boy, the Adams family courted trouble long before I courted Morticia. Besides, I've merely removed you from an unacceptable situation. The real battle is yet to come, and what a glorious battle it shall be. He checked his watch, which now had all its hands pointing to adventure imminent. First, though, we need proper counsel. And for that, we need to return to Diagon Alley. I know a goblin lawyer who specializes in human custody disputes. Frightfully expensive, but he once secured custody of triplets for a client despite the opposing party being a literal three-headed dog. Harry's eyes widened. Goblins are real too. Real, argumentative, and excellent with both money and loopholes. Gomez confirmed enthusiastically. Just never compliment their height. Cousin it made that mistake once and spent 3 months dodging cursed coins. They walked to the end of Privet Drive, where Gomez led Harry into a secluded area between two hedges. Now, we'll need to apparate, magical transportation, he explained. First time can be disorienting. Like being turned inside out, run through a pasta maker, then reassembled. Great fun. But perhaps unsettling for beginners. Harry looked nervous but determined. I can handle it. Splendid attitude. You'll make an honorary Adams yet. Gomez beamed. Hold tight to my arm and remember, scream if you want, but do try to keep your eyeballs facing inward. They're such a nuisance to reinsert properly. With Harry's hand firmly grasping his sleeve, Gomez turned sharply, and the two vanished with a crack, leaving only swirling leaves behind in the painfully ordinary street. They reappeared in an alleyway near the leaky cauldron, Harry wobbling unsteadily on his feet while Gomez smoothed his mustache. Not bad for a first attempt. You've kept all your fingers and most of your color. He steadied Harry with a hand. Deep breaths. The nausea passes. Unless you've been operating with my great-uncle Fluff Bucket. His splinchings were legendary. Harry gulped air, waiting for the world to stop spinning. That was intense. Indeed. Now, quick change of plans. Before we see the goblin solicitor, we should secure you some proper attire. Can't have the boy who lived dressed like he's been living under a staircase, even if that's technically accurate. He guided Harry toward the pub entrance, then paused, eyeing the lightning scar on Harry's forehead. You're rather recognizable. Your scar is practically a magical landmark. Gomez reached into his pocket and pulled out what appeared to be a small pot of grease paint. Family recipe, theatrical concealer. We use it for disguising unfortunate sunburns. Adamses prefer the pallor of those who thrive in shadows. With a deft touch, he applied a small amount to Harry's forehead, covering the scar. There. And let's add. He produced a small hat from an impossibly small pocket. Every good disguise needs a hat. This one belonged to Pugsley when he was your age. He used it to sneak into the poison dart frog exhibit at the zoo. The hat was black with small, barely noticeable skull decorations around the brim. Harry put it on, and it fit surprisingly well. Now, into the wizarding world we go. Gomez declared, pushing open the door to the leaky cauldron. The pub was dim and smoky, filled with the usual assortment of magical folk. Gomez strode in confidently, nodding at Tom the bartender, who gave him a cautious wave in return. The Adams reputation clearly preceded him. Just passing through, Tom. Business with Gringotts, you know how it is. Tom nodded, eyeing Harry curiously but not recognizing him with the concealed scar and hat. They passed quickly through the pub to the brick wall behind it. Gomez tapped the correct pattern with his wand, and the bricks rearranged themselves to form an archway. Diagon Alley, he announced with a flourish as the bustling magical street was revealed. Not as delightfully gloomy as Knockturn Alley, where we'll visit later if time permits, but it has its charms. Harry gaped at the magical shops, the owls swooping overhead, the cauldrons stacked outside stores, and witches and wizards in their robes. It's amazing, he breathed. This is just the commercial district, Gomez chuckled. Wait until you see a proper magical dwelling. Our summer home in the Carpathian Mountains is particularly splendid, sits atop a convergence of ley lines. Makes the furniture dance on full moons. He guided Harry through the crowded street toward a distinguished-looking shop with a sign reading, Twilfit and Tattings. Madame Malkin's is the standard for Hogwarts uniforms, Gomez explained, but for immediate needs and discretion, Twilfit serves the more particular families. The bell jingled as they entered, and a tall, elegant witch glided forward. Mr. Adams, she greeted with a slight bow. We weren't expecting you. Is Mrs. Adams with you today? Alas, Morticia remains at home, tending to her carnivorous orchids. A new breeding cycle, most exciting. The screams keep Pugsley awake at night. Gomez beamed proudly. I require immediate attire for my young friend here. He gestured to Harry. Complete wardrobe. Growing boy. Needs everything. The witch looked Harry up and down, her professional eye taking in the oversized clothes and skinny frame. Indeed. Step this way, young man. For the next half hour, Harry was measured, fitted, and dressed in clothing that actually fit him for what felt like the first time in his life. Gomez insisted on a mix of practical wizarding wear, muggle-passing clothing, and what he called formal occasion attire, which included a miniature version of his own pinstriped suit. Every young man needs at least one suit for dueling, funerals, and formal dinners, often the same event in my family. Gomez declared. When they finally exited the shop, Harry wore neat black trousers, a dark green shirt that brings out your eyes magnificently, just like Morticia's deadly nightshade in bloom, according to Gomez, and a light jacket. His new clothing purchases had been shrunk and packed into a small bag. Now you look like someone ready to take on the ministry. Gomez nodded approvingly. And speaking of which, to Gringotts we go. Time to wake sleeping dragons, both literal and legal. As they walked toward the imposing white building, Harry found his voice again. Gomez? Why are you really doing all this? You don't even know me. Gomez stopped, looking genuinely surprised by the question. Do I need a reason beyond basic decency? No child should live in a cupboard. His expression darkened briefly. The Addams family has always stood against the mistreatment of magical children. In the old days, we used to raid witch hunter camps. Great-grandmother Desdemona once rescued 7 magical children and turned their persecutors into particularly warty toads. He knelt down, meeting Harry's eyes. Besides, I recognize that look. The one that says you've never belonged. Every Addams knows that feeling when walking among ordinary folk. The difference is, we celebrate it. And so should you. Harry swallowed hard. Thank you. No need for thanks. This promises to be the most entertaining custody dispute since the 1750s, when my ancestor Caliban Addams challenged a banshee for guardianship of an orphaned Selkie. Gomez clapped Harry on the shoulder. Now, prepare yourself for goblins. Remember, direct eye contact, firm handshake, and never, ever comment on the disparity between their tooth-to-gum ratio. Inside Gringotts, Gomez bypassed the main tellers and headed straight for a door marked, Legal Affairs and Blood Feuds. The goblin guard recognized him instantly. Mr. Addams. Another inheritance dispute? Custody matter this time, Nagnok. Is Grimjaw available? I require his particular expertise. The goblin looked skeptical but opened the door. Wait here. Minutes later, they were ushered into an opulent office where an ancient, scarred goblin sat behind a desk made from what appeared to be solidified molten gold. Addams, the goblin greeted without warmth. I thought we concluded our business earlier today. New development, old friend. Gomez announced, guiding Harry forward. May I present Harry Potter? The goblin's eyes widened fractionally, zeroing in on the partially concealed scar. Indeed. And what business brings Harry Potter to my office? Custody dispute. Gomez declared. Young Harry has been living with Muggle relatives. In a cupboard. Grimjaw's expression didn't change, but his long fingers steepled together. Interesting. And your involvement, Mr. Addams? I'm challenging for custody, of course. The goblin leaned back. On what grounds? Blood relation. Magical guardianship claim. Ancient feud resolution. Grounds. Gomez looked momentarily confused, then rallied. Child welfare. Isn't that enough? Not in wizarding law, Grimjaw said flatly. Especially not against Albus Dumbledore's arrangements. Dumbledore placed him there, Gomez confirmed. With blood wards. But clearly without proper monitoring. The goblin nodded slowly. This will require research. The Potter wills were sealed after their deaths. Sealed. Gomez's eyebrows shot up. By whose authority? The chief warlock of the Wizengamot. Dumbledore again. Curiouser and curiouser. Gomez twirled his mustache thoughtfully. Can they be unsealed? For the right price and with the right pressure, Grimjaw showed his pointed teeth. Especially with the Potter heir himself requesting it. Harry, who had been quietly taking everything in, spoke up. My parents left wills. Of course, the goblin replied. The ancient and noble house of Potter wouldn't die intestate. Ancient and noble house. Harry looked confused. You don't know your own heritage. Grimjaw looked genuinely shocked, then calculating. That's exploitable. I mean, concerning. Gomez clapped his hands. Excellent. A twofold approach, unseal the wills and educate Harry about his birthright. The Ministry can hardly deny him knowledge of his own family legacy. They can try, Grimjaw warned. Especially if Dumbledore opposes it. Then we'll need leverage. Gomez's eyes gleamed. Fortunately, the Addams family specializes in persuasion. We once convinced a sphinx to rephrase all its riddles as limericks. The goblin opened a ledger. My fee structure for custody disputes involving sealed wills, ancient houses, and potential confrontation with the chief warlock starts at 5,000 galleons. Highway robbery. Gomez declared delightedly. I'll give you 7,000, but I expect creative accounting and at least 3 obscure legal precedents from the Goblin rebellions. Grimjaw's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. Done. He pulled out a contract. Blood signature required. Naturally. Gomez produced an ornate dagger from his sleeve and pricked his finger without hesitation, signing the document with a flourish. Harry, you too. Just a small drop. Harry hesitantly took the dagger and followed suit, wincing slightly at the prick. Excellent. Gomez beamed. Now, while Grimjaw begins the legal machinations, we should secure accommodations. Can't return to Addams Manor just yet, international port keys require registration, and we want to maintain the element of surprise. The leaky cauldron would draw attention, Grimjaw noted. I suggest Nocturne Heights. Exclusive, discreet, and the management doesn't ask questions about screaming in the night. Perfect. Gomez nodded approvingly. Do they still have those marvelous flesh-eating bedbugs in the premium suites? Harry looked alarmed. A joke, young Harry. Gomez laughed, though his expression suggested it wasn't entirely a joke. Though you'll find the wizarding world has a different standard for dangerous pets. Wait until you meet Cleopatra, our pet African strangler lion. Absolutely adores children. Usually just watches them for hours rather than pouncing immediately. Grimjaw handed Gomez a key with a skull-shaped head. Suite 13, Nocturne Heights. Password is, trespassers will be incorporated into the architecture. Charming. Gomez pocketed the key. When can we expect first movement on the legal front? I'll file the initial paperwork today. Expect ministry response within 48 hours, followed by immediate stonewalling and denial. The goblin showed his teeth again. Standard procedure when challenging Dumbledore. Wonderful. I do so love a challenge with proper opposition. Gomez stood and bowed formally to the goblin. May your enemies die slowly enough to count their regrets. May your gold flow and your secrets remain buried, Grimjaw replied with an equally formal nod. Outside Gringotts, Harry finally found his voice again. Do I really have some kind of inheritance? A family legacy? Undoubtedly. Gomez assured him. The Potters were an old magical family. Not as delightfully macabre as the Addamses, perhaps, but respected and powerful. The fact you've been kept in ignorance of this is. He frowned, twirling his mustache in agitation. Well, it's suspicious, to say the least. But why would Dumbledore hide it from me? Control, perhaps. Insurance that you'd enter the wizarding world reliant on his guidance. Gomez shrugged. Or perhaps simple oversight. Even great wizards can make careless mistakes when moving chess pieces across the board. They walked toward Nocturne Alley, where Gomez steered them down an even narrower side passage that Harry would never have noticed on his own. Unlike the main alley with its hunched figures and suspicious merchandise, this street held imposing townhouses with black doors and silver knockers shaped like various magical creatures. Nocturne Heights, Gomez explained. Where the slightly more respectable dark wizards reside. Not necessarily evil, mind you, just appreciative of magic that makes proper company nervous. He approached a door with a chimera-shaped knocker that snarled as they neared. Password, trespassers will be incorporated into the architecture. The door swung open silently, revealing a luxurious lobby with black marble floors and floating candelabras that dripped blood-red wax that vanished before hitting the floor. Reminds me of the East Wing drawing room at home, Gomez noted approvingly. Though Mother's mounted troll heads add a certain ambience that's missing here. The clerk at the desk, a pale witch with unnaturally long fingers, looked up as they approached. Suite 13. The goblin messenger arrived 5 minutes ago. We've prepared appropriate accommodations for Mr. Adams and guest. Her eyes flicked curiously to Harry but showed no recognition. Excellent service. The Adams account will cover all expenses, naturally. Any chance of room service? The boy needs feeding up. Menu is in your suite. Items appear as ordered. She handed over an ornate key. Stairs to the left. Do mind the third step, it likes to taste new guests. Gomez accepted the key with enthusiasm. Charming feature. Come along, Harry. Mind the step, but do give it a little tap with your foot, they get discouraged if completely avoided. Harry followed Gomez up the stairs, carefully tapping the third step, which made a satisfied humming sound in response. Suite 13 turned out to be a spacious apartment with Gothic furnishings, velvet drapes, and a view of a completely different landscape than the London alley they'd entered from, a misty moor under moonlight, despite it being afternoon. Enchanted windows, Gomez explained. This one seems set to atmospheric gloom. Morticia would approve. Harry wandered the suite in amazement. Is this really happening? This morning I was making breakfast for the Dursleys, and now. Adventure. Gomez finished for him. Life changes quickly, my boy. Why, I once went out for a morning stroll and returned 3 weeks later having accidentally married a Yeti priestess. Temporary misunderstanding, of course, Morticia sorted it out with a delightful duel at dawn. He found the menu card on an ebony table and handed it to Harry. Order anything you like. Growing boys need sustenance, especially before magical custody battles. They can be quite draining, sometimes literally, depending on which ancient rituals get invoked. While Harry examined the menu with wide eyes, Gomez pulled out a small hand mirror from his pocket. Now, I must contact Morticia. She'll be thrilled at our new project. Nothing delights her more than undermining oppressive authority while adopting strays. He tapped the mirror with his wand. Cara mia. Can you hear me? The mirror's surface rippled, then revealed the pale, beautiful face of Morticia Adams, her dark eyes widening in pleasure. Mon cher, she purred. You're still in London. The children were so looking forward to your promised saga of goblin negotiations over dinner. Change of plans, my love. I've stumbled upon a situation that requires the full Adams treatment. Gomez quickly explained his discovery of Harry, the cupboard, and his plans to challenge for custody. Morticia's normally serene expression darkened with rare anger. A cupboard, Gomez? For a child? How refreshingly medieval, and not in the good way. Precisely my reaction. I've engaged Grimjaw for the legal battle. Excellent choice. His use of the 1638 Goblin child theft accord in the Selwyn case was inspired. Morticia tapped her long, black-painted nail against her cheek thoughtfully. You'll need the family grimoire for blood ward analysis. And perhaps Wednesday's collection of British wizarding law precedents. She's been studying them for her When I Rule the World project. Marvelous idea. Can you bring them? And the children too, Harry should meet his potential new family. Morticia smiled her slow, dangerous smile. We'll take the midnight portkey. International travel is so much more atmospheric after dark. Her gaze shifted, looking past Gomez. Is that him? Let me see the child. Gomez turned, gesturing Harry closer. Harry, come meet my wife, the magnificent Morticia Adams. Harry approached cautiously, coming into view of the mirror. Hello, Mrs. Adams. Morticia studied him with keen interest. Such lovely eyes. Like fresh pickled toads. And that magical aura, quite remarkable. I can see it even through the mirror. You can see magic? Harry asked in surprise. A family gift, she explained. Yours is, unusual. We'll discuss it when I arrive. Her gaze softened slightly. Until then, Mr. Potter, welcome to the extended Adams Circle. We're quite looking forward to meeting you properly. Thank you, Harry managed, clearly overwhelmed. Rest now, cara mia, Gomez said. We have preparations to make. Paperwork to file. Politicians to threaten. Perhaps a duel or two. Try not to start any international incidents before we arrive, darling, Morticia cautioned with obvious affection. Save something exciting for the children. I make no promises. Gomez declared cheerfully. But I'll try to ensure any bloodshed is purely metaphorical. For now. After bidding Morticia goodbye, Gomez turned to Harry, who had finally selected something from the menu, a simple soup and sandwich that appeared instantly on the dining table. Eat up. Tomorrow we beard the Ministry lion in its den. We'll need to file formal custody challenge papers and request an emergency hearing before the Waisengemot. Harry sat down at the table. Will they even listen? If Dumbledore is as powerful as you say. My dear boy, the key to challenging power is audacity. Gomez pulled up a chair across from him. The Ministry, like most bureaucracies, runs on rules and procedures. They expect people to follow proper channels, file correct forms, wait patiently. And we won't. Harry guessed, taking a bite of his sandwich, the first food he hadn't had to cook himself in years. Oh, we'll file the forms, Gomez's eyes twinkled with mischief. But we'll also create such a spectacle they can't possibly ignore us. The Adams approach combines perfect technical compliance with maximum theatrical disruption. He pulled a pocket watch from his vest and checked it. We have until midnight when Morticia arrives with reinforcements. Just enough time for a crash course in wizarding politics and your family history, what little I know of it. For the next several hours, Gomez regaled Harry with tales of the wizarding world, magical history, and what he knew of the Potters. Harry listened in fascination, asking questions between bites of food that Gomez encouraged him to keep ordering. The Potters were innovators, Gomez explained, particularly in magical item creation. Your father was something of a prodigy in transfiguration, from what I've heard. Your mother was Muggle-born but brilliant, pioneered several charm variations that impressed even the old blood purists, though they'd never admit it. And they were murdered, Harry said quietly. By Voldemort. Gomez nodded solemnly, one of his few serious expressions. A dark wizard who went too far in all the wrong directions. Power without style, cruelty without artistry. The worst kind of magical villain, boringly predictable in his megalomania. The Dursleys never told me anything true about them. Typical of those who fear magic, Gomez sighed. They try to smother it, hide it, pretend it doesn't exist. The Adams philosophy is quite the opposite, we embrace the strange, the macabre, the unexplainable. Makes life so much more interesting. As evening fell outside, though the enchanted windows still showed the moonlit moor, Harry's eyelids began to droop despite his fascination with Gomez's stories. To bed with you, Gomez declared, noticing Harry's exhaustion. Tomorrow will be eventful, and you'll need your strength. Magical custody battles have been known to include surprise combat trials, spontaneous ancestral judgments, and the occasional riddle-based challenge. Harry nodded sleepily. Thank you, Gomez. For everything. No need for thanks. This is the most fun I've had on a business trip since the incident with the exploding vault in Prague. Gomez guided Harry to the smaller bedroom. Sleep well. Dream of Dungeons and Dragons, the entertaining kind, not the paperwork kind we'll face tomorrow. After Harry had gone to bed, Gomez sat at the writing desk in the main room, drafting letters far into the night. To old contacts in the Ministry. To family allies scattered across Europe. To cousin ITT, whose unorthodox connections often proved invaluable. By the time the clock struck midnight, a small pile of sealed envelopes sat ready for morning delivery. A soft knock at the suite door announced Morticia's arrival. Gomez bounded to answer it, throwing the door wide to reveal his wife in all her Gothic glory, with Wednesday and Pugsley standing on either side of her. "Cara mia!" Gomez exclaimed, taking her hand and pressing fervent kisses up her arm. "You've arrived just in time for the brewing storm." "Buble," Morticia replied with a slow smile. "We wouldn't miss it." The children were particularly insistent. Wednesday, pale with dark braids and an expression of perpetual solemnity, looked past her father. "Is he here?" "The boy who survived the killing curse." "Asleep, my little viper," Gomez explained. "Poor child has had quite the day." Pugsley, round-faced and curious, held up a small box. "I brought him a welcome present. Just a small explosive device. Very beginner-friendly." Thoughtful, Morticia patted his head, "But perhaps save it for after the custody hearing. We wouldn't want to give the ministry additional reasons to question our child-rearing practices." The Adams family settled into the suite, unpacking various grimoires, legal texts, and what appeared to be a shrunken guillotine that Wednesday insisted was, just in case. As Gomez filled Morticia in on the details he'd discovered, her expression grew increasingly severe. Blood wards maintained without proper familial bonds, sealed wills, a magical child kept ignorant of his heritage. She shook her head. "Someone has been playing a very long game with this boy's life." "Precisely my thoughts." Gomez agreed. "And if there's one thing an Adams can't resist, it's disrupting someone else's careful plans," Morticia finished with a slight smile. "How delightful. We haven't caused a proper magical political scandal since that business with the minister's curse to pay." "Tomorrow, my love," Gomez promised, raising her hand to his lips once more, "we storm the castle of bureaucracy and rescue the imprisoned prince. And if we happen to set fire to a few metaphorical tapestries along the way." "All the better," Morticia agreed, her eyes gleaming in the candlelight. "Now, show me these blood wards you described. Family magic is my specialty, after all." As the Adams family prepared their strategy for the coming confrontation, Harry Potter slept peacefully in the next room, unaware that his life was about to change in ways even more dramatic than being rescued from a cupboard by an enthusiastic American wizard with a taste for the macabre. In his dreams, for once, there were no green flashes or screaming. Instead, he dreamed of a strange mansion on a hill, where he was welcomed with open arms by a family who found his differences fascinating rather than freakish. A family who might, against all odds, become his own. Chapter 2, Ministry Madness. Harry woke to the smell of something burning. Not the acrid smell of scorched food that usually meant he'd overslept and Aunt Petunia was furious, but something, chemical. Almost pleasant, in a strange way. He opened his eyes to find a round-faced boy about his age standing beside the bed, holding what looked like a miniature cauldron that emitted purple smoke. "Oh good, you're up," the boy said casually. "I was about to try the louder version. Dad says it's rude to detonate things near sleeping people without warning them first." Harry blinked, memories of yesterday flooding back. Gomez Adams. Rescue. Magic. He scrambled for his glasses. "You're Pugsley," he guessed, recalling Gomez mentioning his son. "Yup." The boy grinned, revealing slightly crooked teeth. "And you're Harry Potter. Dad told us all about finding you in a cupboard." "That's pretty cool. I've got a cousin who lives in the family crypt, but never met anyone who lived under stairs before." Before Harry could respond to this bizarre comparison, the door opened and a girl entered. She looked about Harry's age with pale skin, dark eyes, and black hair in tight braids. Her expression was completely serious as she evaluated him. "He doesn't look cursed," she announced, sounding disappointed. "I thought surviving the killing curse would leave more visible effects. Tentacles, maybe. Or an extra eye." "Wednesday, don't be rude," came a smooth female voice from the doorway. "Not everyone wears their curses on the outside." Morticia Adams glided into the room, every bit as elegant and imposing as she'd appeared in the mirror. Her floor-length black dress seemed to move with a life of its own, and her pale face was framed by long, straight black hair. "Good morning, Harry Potter," she said, studying him intently. "I trust you slept well. The nightmares here have excellent reviews, though nothing compared to the ancestral Adams beds. Great-grandmother Desdemona's four-poster still shows visions of the Spanish Inquisition to anyone who sleeps in it. Educational, if somewhat screamy." Harry sat up, feeling overwhelmed. "Good morning, Mrs. Adams. No nightmares, actually. Best sleep I've had in, well, ever." "How disappointing for you," Wednesday said flatly, but her mother laid a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Not everyone appreciates nightmares as we do, Wednesday. Cultural differences." Morticia turned back to Harry. "Breakfast awaits in the main room. Gomez has been up for hours, plotting our ministry assault with remarkable enthusiasm. I haven't seen him this excited since that business with the tax collectors and the man-eating geraniums." Harry climbed out of bed, noticing he was wearing pajamas he didn't remember putting on, black silk with small bats embroidered on the collar. "Hope you don't mind," Pugsley said, noticing his confusion. "Dad transfigured them for you last night. Said something about no word of the Adams family sleeping in rags, even temporarily." "They're nice," Harry said honestly, feeling the soft fabric. "Thank you. The bat motif was my suggestion," Wednesday informed him. "They're superior to spiders. More dramatic." Morticia smiled fondly at her daughter. "She's going through a flying mammal phase. Last month it was carnivorous moths. Children and their hobbies are so delightful, aren't they?" Harry wasn't quite sure how to respond to that, so he just nodded. "Your new clothes are in the wardrobe," Morticia continued. "Do join us when you're ready. Gomez is eager to review the battle plan." The three Adamses left him to dress. Harry found the clothes from yesterday's shopping trip hanging neatly in the wardrobe. He selected a simple outfit, dark trousers and a green button-up shirt, and made his way to the main room. The scene that greeted him was one of organized chaos. Gomez stood at a table covered with parchments, maps, and what appeared to be architectural plans of a large building. He wore a fresh pinstriped suit and was gesturing animatedly with a sword in one hand and a quill in the other. "Harry! Perfect timing!" Gomez exclaimed when he spotted him. "We were just finalizing our ministry infiltration strategy." Infiltration being a strong word, since we'll be walking right through the front door, but with significantly more style than your average visitor. "Good morning," Harry said, still feeling slightly dazed by the Adams family's energy. "Is that the Ministry of Magic?" "Indeed." Gomez stabbed the sword into what appeared to be the main atrium on the blueprint. "Seat of wizarding government in Britain. Bureaucratic stronghold. Den of political vipers. We're going to march right in and demand justice." Morticia glided to her husband's side. "Perhaps Harry would like breakfast before we discuss storming government buildings, darling." Of course, of course." Gomez whirled around. "Fuel for the revolution. Can't topple systemic injustice on an empty stomach." Harry was ushered to a side table where an impressive breakfast spread waited. To his relief, despite the Adams family's obvious eccentricities, the food looked perfectly normal: eggs, toast, bacon, fruit. "I wasn't sure about your preferences," Morticia explained. "The children usually enjoy their eggs with eye of newt, but I suspected you might prefer a more conventional breakfast." "This is perfect," Harry assured her, suddenly realizing how hungry he was. "Thank you." As he ate, the Adams family continued their preparations. Wednesday sat cross-legged on the floor, reading from an ancient-looking book titled Custody Battles Through the Ages, From Trial by Combat to Modern Magical Law. Pugsley was carefully packing what looked like small smoke bombs into his pockets, while Morticia consulted with Gomez over the blueprints. "The Wisengamot chamber is here," she pointed with one long, black-painted nail. "Excellent acoustics for dramatic revelations." "Perfect," Gomez declared. "And the minister's office?" In case we need a private discussion. East wing, top floor. Morticia traced the path. Though I doubt Minister Fudge will be amenable to reason. From what our sources indicate, he's firmly in Dumbledore's corner. All the more exciting when we change his mind. Gomez twirled his mustache with evident delight. Harry finished his breakfast and approached the table. So what's the plan exactly? Gomez beamed at him. Direct. I like it. The plan, my boy, is threefold. First, we file our formal custody challenge with the Department of Magical Family Services, boring but necessary paperwork. Second, we demand an immediate emergency hearing before the Wizengamot, citing child endangerment and willful suppression of inheritance rights. Third, and this is where it gets interesting, we present evidence that will make denial impossible. What evidence? Harry asked. Your memories, for one, Morticia said gently. If you're willing. The wizarding world has ways of viewing memories, it would be the most direct proof of your mistreatment. Harry hesitated. The idea of others seeing his life at the Dursleys was embarrassing, but if it meant never going back. I'll do it, he said firmly. Excellent. Gomez clapped him on the shoulder. With that, plus the documentation Grimjaw is preparing about your sealed inheritance, and a few choice Addams family artifacts to add gravitas, will give them quite the show. Artifacts? Harry asked. Just a few family heirlooms, Gomez said with a casual wave. The Blade of Righteous Guardianship, the Unbreakable Oath Scroll, the Bloodline Verification Orb, standard custody battle equipment. Been in the family for centuries, only slightly cursed. Harry wasn't sure whether to laugh or be concerned. Before he could decide, a tapping at the window caught their attention. A severe-looking owl with sleek black feathers waited outside. Ah, news from Grimjaw. Gomez hurried to let the bird in. The owl swooped to the table, dropped a thick envelope, and perched on the back of a chair with the dignity of a royal messenger. Gomez tore open the envelope and scanned its contents, his expression growing more delighted with each line. Magnificent. He declared. Grimjaw has filed the initial paperwork and forced an emergency session of the Wizengamot for this very morning. Apparently invoking the Treaty of 1712 regarding international intervention in child welfare cases was a masterstroke, they can't refuse without violating 3 separate magical accords. How fortuitous, Morticia commented. And the wills? Motion filed to unseal, pending Wizengamot approval. Grimjaw suggests we bring Harry directly to the hearing, his physical presence will make it harder for them to dismiss the case. Gomez checked his pocket watch. We have precisely 2 hours to prepare. Time to arm ourselves. From a bag that seemed far too small for its contents, Gomez began removing items that made Harry's eyes widen. First came a sword with a blade that seemed to shimmer between solid and smoke. The Blade of Righteous Guardianship, Gomez announced. Forged by my great-great-grandfather during the Goblin Rebellion of 1612. Cuts through magical red tape, sometimes literally. Next came a scroll case made of some dark metal with runes carved along its length. The Unbreakable Oath Scroll, Morticia explained, handling it with reverence. For recording magically binding agreements. We've used it for everything from marriage vows to treaties with supernatural entities. Finally, Gomez removed a crystal sphere about the size of a grapefruit, filled with what looked like swirling red mist. The Bloodline Verification Orb, he said, holding it up. Reveals magical lineage and familial connections. Been in the family vault since the Middle Ages. Supposedly created by Morgana herself, though cousin Itt claims it was actually made by her less famous sister Morgan who liked pottery. Pugsley looked up from his explosives. Don't forget the emergency port key, Dad. Excellent point, my boy. Gomez pulled out what appeared to be a small silver hand bell. In case of governmental overreach or attempted arrest, 1 ring and will be transported directly to Gringotts' sovereign territory. The goblins do love thumbing their noses at ministry authority, one of their many charming qualities. Harry watched all this with growing amazement. Is this normal? I mean, do wizarding families usually have all this stuff? Wednesday looked up from her book. We're not normal, she stated flatly, as if this were obvious and something to be proud of. Even by wizarding standards. The Addams family has always walked the line between various magical traditions, Morticia explained. We find rigid categorization so limiting. Dark, light, European, American, why choose when you can embrace them all? Which makes us particularly well suited to challenge the British ministry, Gomez added. We're outside their usual framework. They won't know quite how to categorize us, and that gives us an advantage. As they continued preparing, Gomez outlined their approach to the hearing. The plan sounded equal parts legal proceeding and theatrical performance, with carefully timed revelations and strategic use of their unusual artifacts. Most importantly, Gomez said, suddenly serious as he knelt to Harry's level, this is about you. Your wishes. Your future. If at any point you feel uncomfortable or want to stop, you need only say so. I want to go through with it, Harry said firmly. I don't want to go back to the Dursleys. Ever. Then it's settled. Gomez's serious expression vanished, replaced by his usual enthusiasm. The Addams family goes to war. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Unless things get particularly interesting, in which case, Gomez, Morticia laid a gentle hand on his arm. Perhaps we should save the contingency plans for if they become necessary. You're right as always, cara mia. Gomez kissed her hand fervently. One step at a time. First the legal approach, then the ancestral curses if needed. At precisely 9:30, the Addams family plus Harry stood ready to depart. Gomez had shrunk most of their artifacts into a black leather case, except for the sword, which he wore openly at his hip as if this were the most natural accessory for a ministry visit. Remember, he instructed as they prepared to leave, walk with purpose. Head high. We're not supplicants, we're champions of justice. The ministry works for the magical community, not the other way around. And if anyone asks about the sword? Harry wondered. Family heirloom, Gomez replied cheerfully. Perfectly legal to carry under the Ancestral Artifacts Preservation Act of 1832. I checked. They made their way down to the lobby of Knockturn Heights and out into the alley. Even in the morning light, Knockturn Alley maintained its shadowy atmosphere. The few early shoppers and shopkeepers gave the unusual family curious glances but wisely kept their distance. Rather than heading toward Diagon Alley, Gomez led them down a narrower side passage that ended at what appeared to be a solid brick wall. He tapped a complex pattern with his wand, and the bricks rearranged themselves to reveal a small courtyard with a single black door. Ministry employees' entrance, he explained. So much more dignified than that ridiculous telephone box the public uses. Grimjaw provided the access pattern. Apparently ministers have been sneaking mistresses and contraband through here for centuries. How educational, Morticia commented. Children, observe how corruption creates convenient access points in seemingly secure systems. I'm taking notes, Wednesday assured her, actually jotting something in a small black notebook. The black door opened into a narrow corridor that sloped gently downward, lit by floating orbs of blue flame. After walking for several minutes, they emerged suddenly into the grand atrium of the Ministry of Magic. Their appearance caused an immediate stir. The Addams family cut a striking figure against the backdrop of hurrying ministry workers in their standard robes. Gomez in his pinstriped suit and sword, Morticia in her flowing black gown, Wednesday and Pugsley looking like miniature versions of their parents, and Harry, who despite his new clothes still appeared small and somewhat overwhelmed by it all. Main security desk first, Gomez announced, striding confidently across the atrium. Then to Level 2, Department of Magical Law Enforcement. The Wizengamot chambers are adjacent. The security wizard at the desk looked up as they approached, his expression shifting from boredom to confusion to alarm as he registered the sword at Gomez's hip. Sir, Weapons are not permitted, Ancestral Artifacts Preservation Act, subsection 7, paragraph 3, Gomez interrupted smoothly. Hereditary magical implements carried by heads of ancient families are exempt from standard security restrictions. The Addams family predates your ministry by several centuries, my good man. The guard looked uncertain. I'll need to see documentation for that claim. Certainly. Gomez reached into his jacket and produced a rolled parchment bearing an intimidating array of seals. Our family lineage, verified by the International Confederation of Wizards, the American Magical Congress, and, most importantly, the Goblin Banking Consortium. This last reference caused the guard to hesitate. Crossing the goblins was rarely wise. He examined the document carefully, then reluctantly nodded. Very well, but I'll need to register your wands. Of course, of course. Gomez handed over his wand with a flourish. 13 inches, blackthorn with chimera heartstring. Been in the family for generations. The guard placed it on a brass scale, which vibrated and printed out a slip of paper. Blackthorn, 13 inches, chimera heartstring core, in use for, the age field is blank. Family secret, Gomez winked. Let's just say it's seen several interesting centuries. Morticia presented her wand next, a slender, jet-black instrument that seemed to drink in the light around it. 12¼ inches, thestral hair core. Custom made. The scale seemed to shiver slightly as it weighed her wand, and the printout emerged with smoking edges. Next, the guard said, looking increasingly uncomfortable. Wednesday stepped forward. I'm underage. Educational wand only. She presented a pale wand that looked as though it had been carved from bone. Aspen, 10 inches, Runspor Fong core, the guard read from the printout, eyebrows rising slightly at the unusual combination. Pugsley's wand, Rowan with dragon heartstring, followed, and finally Harry presented his own wand, purchased just the day before during a quick side trip to Ollivanders that Gomez had insisted upon. Holly, 11 inches, phoenix feather, the guard read, then did a double take as he saw the name on the visitor badge Gomez had requested. Harry Potter. Heads turned throughout the atrium as the name carried. Whispers broke out immediately. Harry Potter. The boy who lived. What's he doing with those strange Americans? Our appointment with the Wizengamot awaits, Gomez declared loudly, reclaiming his wand and ushering the group toward the lifts. Child welfare case. Most urgent. They squeezed into the next available lift, joining several ministry employees who stared openly at Harry and the Addams family. One witch in particular, wearing lurid green robes and sporting elaborately curled blonde hair, looked as though Christmas had come early. Harry Potter. She said, pushing forward with a predatory smile. Rita Skeeter, Daily Prophet. Care to comment on what brings you to the ministry today? And who are your unusual companions? No comment at this time, madam, Gomez interjected smoothly. Though if you'd like an exclusive after the Wizengamot session, I'm sure we could arrange something suitably sensational. The witch's eyes gleamed. I'll be there. Count on it. She exited at level 4, casting one last curious glance over her shoulder. Journalists, Morticia commented after the doors closed. So eager for tragedy and scandal. I find it rather endearing. Level 2, announced the lift's cool female voice. Department of Magical Law Enforcement, including the improper use of Magic Office, Aura Headquarters, and Wizengamot Administration Services. They exited into a bustling corridor filled with paper airplanes zooming overhead, interdepartmental memos, Gomez explained to Harry. Following the signs to Wizengamot chambers, they arrived at a set of imposing oak doors guarded by 2 wizards in formal purple robes. State your business, said the older of the 2 guards. Gomez Addams and family, here for the emergency session regarding the custody of Harry Potter, Gomez announced formally. As petitioned by Grimjaw of Gringotts Wizarding Bank on our behalf. The guard consulted a parchment. The session is scheduled to begin in 20 minutes. You may wait in the antechamber. He gestured to a smaller door to the left. Excellent. Though I must inform you that as the petitioning party, we have the right to arrange our evidence in the chamber before proceedings begin. Gomez produced another official-looking document. International Magical Court Procedures, Article 17. The guards exchanged glances, clearly unfamiliar with the regulation but unwilling to risk denying a legitimate legal right. After a brief consultation, they reluctantly opened the main doors. You have 15 minutes, the older guard said. The full Wisengamot will enter at 10 sharp. More than enough time. Come along, family. Gomez led the way into the impressive circular chamber. The Wisengamot courtroom was imposing, tiered seating surrounded a central floor with a single chair facing the highest tier, where the chief warlock would sit. The walls were lined with dark wooden panels carved with magical symbols, and enchanted torches cast dancing shadows across the stone floor. Perfect, Gomez declared, surveying the room. Morticia, if you'd prepare the memory projection area there. Wednesday, the ancestral artifacts on that side table. Pugsley, remember, smoke bombs only as a final resort. Pugsley looked disappointed but nodded. Harry stood in the center of the room, taking it all in. This is where they'll decide. This is where we'll convince them, Gomez corrected, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. The law is on our side, Harry. We just need to make them see it. For the next 10 minutes, the Addams family worked with practiced efficiency, setting up their evidence and artifacts. Gomez unshrunk the bloodline verification orb and placed it on a conjured pedestal, while Morticia prepared a silver basin that Harry learned was called a pensieve, used for viewing memories. At precisely 5 minutes before 10, the doors opened again to admit a goblin in formal attire carrying a briefcase that seemed too large for his stature, yet he bore it with ease. Grimjaw. Gomez greeted him warmly. Right on schedule. Mr. Addams. The goblin nodded curtly. I have the documentation you requested, including the petition to unseal the Potter wills and the records of magical guardian assignments following the deaths of James and Lily Potter. He set his briefcase on the table and opened it, removing several official-looking portfolios. Any opposition we should expect? Morticia asked. Grimjaw bared his teeth in what might have been a smile. The chief warlock has been notably silent, but Lucius Malfoy has been quite active this morning, speaking with various Wisengamot members. I believe he sees your interest in Mr. Potter as a threat to certain arrangements. Malfoy, Gomez mused, twirling his mustache. Old family, dubious allegiances during the last Wizarding War, substantial political influence through generous donations. How delightful. A worthy adversary makes victory all the sweeter. At precisely 10 o'clock, a side door opened and members of the Wisengamot began filing in, all wearing the traditional plum-colored robes with an elaborate silver W on the left breast. They took their seats in the tiered rows, many casting curious or suspicious glances at the Addams family and particularly at Harry, who stood straighter under their scrutiny. Whispers filled the chamber as more members arrived, clearly surprised to see Harry Potter himself present. Many pointed at his forehead, where the famous lightning scar was visible now that Gomez had removed the concealing makeup from yesterday. A hush fell as Albus Dumbledore entered in his capacity as Chief Warlock, resplendent in purple and gold robes. His long white beard and half-moon spectacles gave him a grandfatherly appearance, though his blue eyes were sharp as they took in the scene below. Harry saw Dumbledore's gaze linger on him with an unreadable expression before shifting to Gomez and the assembled Addams family with obvious surprise. The final members to enter included a portly man wearing a lime-green bowler hat whom Gomez whispered was Minister Cornelius Fudge, and a tall aristocratic blonde man who could only be Lucius Malfoy, judging by the way Grimjaw's eyes narrowed at his entrance. When all were seated, Dumbledore struck a small gong with a silver hammer. This emergency session of the Wisengamot is now in session, he announced, his voice magically amplified to fill the chamber. We are here to address a petition regarding the custody of Harry James Potter, filed by. He consulted a parchment before him, eyebrows rising slightly. Gomez Addams of the American Addams family. Murmurs broke out again. Dumbledore continued, as Chief Warlock, I must note that this petition is highly irregular. Mr. Potter's guardianship was established according to magical law following the death of his parents. Gomez stepped forward. With all due respect, Chief Warlock, that is precisely the matter we wish to address. The circumstances of Mr. Potter's placement with his Muggle relatives, the conditions of his upbringing, and the apparent disregard for his parents' wishes as potentially expressed in their sealed wills. Sealed by order of this very body, Dumbledore noted calmly. A decision we petition to overturn today, Gomez countered. But first, may I present evidence regarding Mr. Potter's living conditions? I believe it will establish the urgency of our petition. Dumbledore hesitated, then nodded. You may proceed, Mr. Addams. However, I must ask, what standing do you claim to petition for custody of Mr. Potter? Gomez smiled broadly. An excellent question. 3 grounds, in fact. First, as an international wizard concerned with child welfare under the Treaty of 1712. Second, as a potential distant relation through the Black family, to which we believe the Potters had marital ties. And third, his expression grew more serious, as the wizard who discovered Harry Potter living in a cupboard under the stairs, wearing rags, and clearly suffering from years of neglect and emotional abuse. Shocked gasps echoed through the chamber. Dumbledore's calm facade cracked slightly. That is a very serious allegation, Mr. Addams. Which is why we've brought evidence. Gomez turned and gestured to Morticia, who approached with the pensieve. If the Wizengamot permits, she said, her voice smooth as silk, we would like to present Mr. Potter's memories of his life with the Dursley family. With his consent, of course. All eyes turned to Harry, who stepped forward with a courage that surprised even himself. I'm willing to show my memories, he said clearly. I've lived in a cupboard under the stairs at number 4 Privet Drive since I was left there as a baby. I'm made to cook and clean, I get punished for things I can't control, and until yesterday, I didn't even know I was a wizard. I was told my parents died in a car crash. The silence that followed was deafening. Even Lucius Malfoy looked genuinely shocked. Dumbledore's voice, when he finally spoke, was less certain. The extraction of memories from a minor requires guardian consent. A fascinating point, Grimjaw interjected, stepping forward with a document. According to subsection 12 of the Children's Magical Protection Act, in cases where guardian abuse is alleged, the minor may consent to memory extraction for official review if supported by a qualified advocate. As Mr. Potter's legal representative, I so qualify. Dumbledore looked troubled but nodded slowly. The Wizengamot will permit the memory evidence. Morticia approached Harry with the pensieve. This won't hurt, she assured him. Just think of your life at the Dursleys, specific incidents that show how you were treated. I'll use my wand to extract the memory, and you'll still retain it as well. Harry nodded, closing his eyes and concentrating. Morticia gently touched her wand to his temple and drew out a silvery strand that she deposited in the pensieve. She repeated this several times as Harry focused on different memories, being locked in his cupboard, punished for accidental magic, Dudley's bullying with Vernon and Petunia's approval, the meager meals while the Dursleys ate full plates, the endless chores. When they had collected enough, Morticia stepped back and tapped the pensieve with her wand. The silvery contents rose up and expanded into a 3-dimensional projection visible to the entire Wizengamot. For the next 20 minutes, the chamber watched in growing horror as scenes from Harry's life played out before them. Vernon Dursley's purple-faced rage, Petunia's sharp slaps and verbal abuse, Dudley's physical bullying, Harry cooking breakfast while standing on a stool as a small child, being chased and beaten by Dudley's gang, sleeping in the dusty cupboard on a threadbare mattress. By the time the memories faded, several Wizengamot members looked ill. An older witch was dabbing at her eyes, while others wore expressions of undisguised outrage. This is how the boy who lived has been raised. Minister Fudge sputtered, looking genuinely shocked. Albus, you assured me he was being well cared for. Dumbledore looked deeply troubled. I was aware that the Dursleys were not ideal guardians. But I had no idea the extent of the mistreatment. Monitoring charms should have alerted me to any serious abuse. Perhaps, Gomez suggested, his usual joviality replaced with cold precision, your monitoring was inadequate. Or perhaps the definition of serious abuse requires reconsideration when a magical child is living in a cupboard. A silver-haired witch on the Wizengamot rose to her feet. Chief Warlock, I move that Harry Potter be immediately removed from these Muggle guardians, regardless of the outcome of this custody petition. What we have witnessed is unconscionable. Seconded, called out several voices. The motion carries, Dumbledore acknowledged, looking older and wearier than before. Mr. Potter will not return to the Dursley household. He turned to Gomez. However, this does not automatically grant custody to you, Mr. Adams. What makes you and your family suitable guardians? An excellent question. Gomez's enthusiasm returned instantly. Morticia and I have raised 2 magical children of our own. He gestured to Wednesday and Pugsley, who stood solemnly beside their mother. We have extensive resources, a supportive extended family, and deep knowledge of magical traditions that would benefit young Harry greatly. Most importantly, his voice softened, we understand what it means to be different, to be misunderstood by the non-magical world. We cherish uniqueness rather than punishing it. The Addams family is hardly conventional, Lucius Malfoy spoke for the first time, his voice silky with disdain. Their reputation for dark magic and eccentricity hardly seems suitable for the boy who lived. On the contrary, Morticia responded smoothly. Our family has never aligned with dark wizards who seek dominion over others. We practice ancient magic, yes, but have stood against tyrants in every age, including, I might add, your former master, Mr. Malfoy. A murmur ran through the Wizengamot at this direct reference to Malfoy's alleged Death Eater past. We're getting ahead of ourselves, Dumbledore interjected. Before any new guardianship can be considered, we must address the matter of the Potters' wills, which may contain their own wishes regarding their son's placement. Precisely why we've petitioned to have them unsealed, Gomez agreed. Grimjaw. The goblin stepped forward, presenting a formal document. Gringotts has maintained the sealed wills of James and Lily Potter since their deaths. We request they be unsealed and read before this body immediately. Dumbledore hesitated. The wills were sealed for Mr. Potter's protection. From what, precisely? Gomez challenged. Knowledge of his inheritance. His parents' wishes. The truth of his family legacy. What exactly is being protected here, Chief Warlock, Harry Potter, or certain decisions made about his life without his knowledge or consent? The chamber grew tense as Dumbledore and Gomez locked eyes. After a long moment, Dumbledore sighed. The sealing was done during chaotic times, when many Death Eaters remained at large. The wills could have contained information that put Mr. Potter at risk. He looked around the chamber. However, given the circumstances and the evidence presented today, I believe it is time to honor James and Lily Potter's final wishes. The Wizengamot will vote on unsealing the wills. The vote was quick and nearly unanimous. Only Lucius Malfoy and a few others abstained. The motion carries, Dumbledore announced. The wills shall be unsealed and read immediately. Grimjaw produced 2 sealed parchments bearing the Gringotts seal and the Potter family crest. With ceremonial gravity, he broke the seals and unrolled the first document. The last will and testament of James Fleamont Potter, he read aloud. Being of sound mind and magic, I declare the following: in the event of my death, all Potter family assets, properties, and titles pass to my son, Harry James Potter, to be held in trust until his majority. Should both my wife Lily and I perish, guardianship of our son shall pass, in this order, to Sirius Black, Harry's godfather by ritual and magic. To Alice and Frank Longbottom, trusted friends and allies. To Remus Lupin, dear friend, with financial support from the Potter vaults to accommodate his condition. Grimjaw looked up. The will explicitly states that under no circumstances should Harry Potter be placed with Lily Potter's sister, Petunia Dursley, and her husband, as, and I quote, their disdain for magic would make them unsuitable guardians for a magical child. A shocked silence fell over the chamber. The second will, Grimjaw continued, opening Lily Potter's testament, contains similar provisions, though with additional detail regarding certain magical protections and research notes to be provided to Harry upon his reaching suitable age. It also explicitly forbids placement with the Dursley family. Gomez turned to Dumbledore, whose expression had grown grave. It seems, Chief Warlock, that Harry Potter was placed exactly where his parents specified he should not be, in direct contravention of their legally expressed wishes. Murmurs of disbelief and outrage spread through the Wizengamot members. "What about Sirius Black?" someone called out. "He was named First Guardian." "Convicted Death Eater," Minister Fudge sputtered. "Murdered 13 people. In Azkaban, where he belongs. Was he ever tried?" Gomez asked suddenly. "Given testimony under Veritaserum? Examined with legitimacy?" The American magical papers reported his capture but never a trial. Uncomfortable silence followed. "That is a matter for another session," Dumbledore said firmly. "Today we must address Mr. Potter's immediate custody situation. The named guardians are unavailable, Sirius Black is imprisoned, the Longbottoms are in St. Mungo's long-term care ward, and Remus Lupin's condition makes him ineligible under current ministry regulations regarding lycanthropy." Gomez nodded thoughtfully. "Which returns us to our petition. In the absence of the named guardians, and with the explicit prohibition against the Dursleys, we offer ourselves as an alternative that respects the spirit of the Potter's wishes, a magical household that will honor Harry's heritage and provide him with knowledge of his family legacy. There are many suitable wizarding families in Britain who could take the boy," Lucius Malfoy interjected smoothly. "My own family would be willing to provide a proper wizarding upbringing. There's no need to send the boy who lived overseas with a family known for its unconventional practices." Gomez twirled his mustache thoughtfully. "An interesting offer, Mr. Malfoy. Particularly coming from someone who, if I recall correctly, claimed to have served Voldemort under the Imperius Curse." Gasps echoed at Gomez's casual use of the feared name. "How curious that you'd now volunteer to raise the child credited with your former master's downfall," Gomez continued pleasantly. "One might almost suspect ulterior motives." Malfoy's face tightened with barely controlled anger. "How dare you insinuate, gentlemen," Dumbledore interrupted, "let us remain focused on Mr. Potter's welfare." "Precisely my intention," Gomez agreed. "Which is why I believe it's time to consult our final piece of evidence." He turned and retrieved the bloodline verification orb from its pedestal. This ancient artifact reveals magical familial connections, both blood relations and magical bindings such as godparent rituals. He placed the orb on the floor of the chamber and tapped it with his wand. "I, Gomez Adams, request verification of familial connections to Harry James Potter." The orb began to glow, the swirling red mist inside forming patterns and shapes. Ghostly lines of light extended from the orb to Harry, then branched out further, creating a complex web. One thin strand stretched to Gomez himself. "As I suspected," Gomez announced triumphantly. "A distant connection through the Black family, to which my great-grandmother belonged before marrying into the Adams line. Distant, yes, but a legitimate blood relation nonetheless." The orb continued its work, with thicker lines extending to other places, most trailing off into the distance, but one very bright strand pointing unmistakably toward the Ministry of Magic's north wall. "Fascinating," Morticia observed. "The orb detects a strong magical connection in that direction. Given the geography, I believe that would be Azkaban prison," Gomez finished. "The Godfather bond with Sirius Black remains intact." "Impossible," Fudge blustered. "Magical godparent bonds break upon betrayal." "Indeed they do," Gomez agreed. "Which suggests a very interesting possibility regarding Mr. Black's guilt or innocence. Before the implications could be fully processed, another magical line emerged from the orb, this one pulsing with an unsettling green light and connecting directly to Harry's famous scar. "What is that?" demanded an elderly wizard from the upper tier. Morticia leaned closer, studying the connection with obvious fascination. "A most unusual magical binding. Not familial, not friendly, almost parasitic in nature." Dumbledore stood abruptly. "I believe we've seen enough of this demonstration. The orb clearly shows Mr. Adams has some distant relation to Mr. Potter, which adds weight to his petition but is hardly definitive." Gomez allowed the orb to go dormant, but his expression was calculating. "The Chief Warlock seems remarkably eager to dismiss evidence of unusual magical connections to young Harry. One wonders why." "Enough insinuations," Dumbledore said firmly. "The Wizengamot must now deliberate on this matter. I ask all parties to wait outside." "Before we adjourn," Gomez interjected, "I'd like to offer a compromise solution. A trial guardianship, give us 1 year with Harry. During that time, he'll attend Hogwarts as planned, maintaining his connection to British Wizarding Society. If at the end of that year, all parties agree it's in Harry's best interest to remain with us, the arrangement becomes permanent. If not, alternative guardianship can be arranged." Murmurs of consideration spread through the chamber. Even Dumbledore looked thoughtful. "A reasonable proposal," he admitted. "The Wizengamot will consider it during deliberations." As they were ushered out to the waiting area, Harry turned to Gomez. "That connection to my scar, what was it really?" Gomez's expression turned serious. "Something unexpected and concerning. Morticia and I will need to research it thoroughly. Ancient family libraries often contain information mainstream magical education overlooks." "You think Dumbledore knows what it is?" "His reaction suggests as much," Morticia said quietly. "Knowledge is power, Harry. Some prefer to maintain their advantage by keeping others in the dark." They waited for nearly an hour, during which time reporters gathered in the corridor outside, drawn by rumors of Harry Potter's presence and the custody dispute. Rita Skeeter was at the forefront, her quick quotes quill hovering eagerly beside her. "Just a few questions, Mr. Potter," she called out. "How does it feel to be fought over by the Chief Warlock and an eccentric American family? Are you excited to escape your Muggle relatives? Did you really live in a cupboard?" Gomez stepped smoothly between Harry and the press. "My young friend will be making no statements at this time. Though I'd be delighted to provide an exclusive interview later, the Addams family has a long tradition of colorful interactions with the Fourth Estate. My great-uncle Romulus once turned an intrusive journalist into a rather functional typewriter." Whether Skeeter took this as joke or threat was unclear, but she backed off slightly, though her quill continued scratching away. Finally, they were summoned back into the Wizengamot chamber. The atmosphere seemed tense, suggesting the deliberations had been contentious. Dumbledore stood to deliver the decision. "This has been an unusual case with disturbing revelations about Mr. Potter's treatment by his Muggle relatives, a situation that will be rectified immediately. Regarding the custody petition, the Wizengamot has reached a compromise decision." He consulted a parchment before continuing. "Harry Potter will be placed in the temporary guardianship of Gomez and Morticia Adams for a trial period of 1 year, during which time he will attend Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry as planned. The Ministry will appoint an observer to make quarterly assessments of Mr. Potter's welfare. At the end of this period, a final determination will be made regarding permanent guardianship." Gomez clapped his hands together in delight. "A sensible compromise. Though the observer clause is unnecessary, we have nothing to hide. Well, nothing relevant to child welfare, at any rate. Additionally," Dumbledore continued, "Mr. Potter's inheritance matters will be reviewed by Gringotts, with an accounting of all assets to be provided to both Mr. Potter and his temporary guardians. The matter of Sirius Black's legal status will be examined separately by the Department of Magical Law Enforcement." Minister Fudge looked particularly unhappy about this last provision but didn't openly object. "This session is concluded," Dumbledore announced, striking the gong once more. As the Wisengamot members began to disperse, many casting curious glances at Harry and the Addams family, Lucius Malfoy approached with a tight smile. "A surprising outcome," he said silkily. "I do hope you understand the responsibility you've taken on. The boy who lived is a symbol to our world." "Symbols are for flags and playing cards, Mr. Malfoy," Gomez replied cheerfully. "Harry is a child first, symbol second or third or possibly 17th. We intend to treat him accordingly." Malfoy's smile didn't reach his eyes. "We'll be watching with great interest." "As will we," Morticia added, her gaze piercing. "One does wonder about your particular interest in a child whose parents were known opponents of your former associates." Malfoy's hand tightened on his snake-headed cane, but he merely inclined his head and moved away. Dumbledore was the last to approach them, his expression grave. "Mr. and Mrs. Addams, while I respect the Wisengamot's decision, I must impress upon you the importance of certain protections Harry has benefited from while living with his blood relatives." "The blood wards," Gomez nodded. "Yes, fascinating magic. Primitive but effective. However, they were clearly weakened by the lack of genuine familial bonds. Magical protection requires more than mere shared DNA, Chief Warlock, it requires care, respect, love." "Nevertheless," Dumbledore persisted, "Harry's safety must be the priority. There are those who would still seek to harm him." "On that, we completely agree," Morticia said. "The Addams family has protected its own through centuries of witch hunts, magical feuds, and supernatural vendettas. Harry will be safer with us than anywhere else on Earth, except perhaps the deepest vault at Gringotts, but children do need sunlight." "Occasionally." Dumbledore studied them thoughtfully. "I misjudged you, perhaps. I had heard of the Addams family, of course, your reputation is colorful. But your advocacy for Harry today was both passionate and principled." "We contain multitudes," Gomez declared with a grin. "Eccentricity and ethical behavior need not be mutually exclusive, after all." "Indeed." Dumbledore's gaze shifted to Harry. "Harry, I wish to express my deep regret regarding your treatment by the Dursleys. I placed you there for your protection, believing the blood connection to your mother would shield you from external threats. I failed to consider the threat might come from within that home." Harry met the old wizard's eyes. "Why didn't you ever check on me? All those years?" Dumbledore sighed heavily. "I had monitoring charms in place, but they were clearly inadequate. I received reports from a neighbor, a squib I placed nearby to keep watch, but it seems she either missed the worst treatment or—" He hesitated, "Her reports were not as complete as I believed." "A mistake, then," Gomez observed. "Rather a significant one." "Yes," Dumbledore acknowledged. "One I hope to begin rectifying by supporting this new arrangement, despite my initial reservations." As Dumbledore departed, Gomez turned to Harry with a broad smile. "Well, my boy, it seems you're officially an honorary Addams for at least the next year. How do you feel about that?" Before Harry could respond, the doors to the chamber burst open, and several ministry officials rushed in, led by Minister Fudge himself, looking flustered and determined. "Addams!" Fudge called out. "There's been a development. I've just received an urgent owl from the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. They've uncovered irregularities in your documentation. The custody transfer must be delayed pending investigation." Gomez raised an eyebrow. "Irregularities? How fascinatingly vague. And what a remarkable coincidence that these concerns arise immediately after a decision not to your liking." "This is not a matter for debate," Fudge insisted. "Aurors will escort Mr. Potter to a ministry safe house while we investigate." Two red-robed Aurors appeared behind Fudge, wands not quite drawn but hands positioned for quick access. "Minister," Grimjaw spoke up, "the Wisengamot's decision is magically binding. Any attempt to circumvent it would violate, Goblin law has no jurisdiction here," Fudge interrupted. "This is a matter of wizarding security." Gomez's cheerful demeanor didn't falter, but a dangerous gleam entered his eyes. "Minister Fudge, I admire a good political maneuver as much as the next man, but this is rather transparent, even by governmental standards. The boy stays in ministry custody until we're satisfied," Fudge insisted. "Orders, secure Mr. Potter." As the orders moved forward, Pugsley suddenly stumbled, dropping a small metal object that hit the floor with a clank and immediately began spewing thick purple smoke throughout the chamber. "Oops," he said innocently. "Prototype went off accidentally." In the ensuing confusion, Gomez quickly pulled out the silver hand bell. "Family, gather close. Harry, take my hand." Harry grasped Gomez's outstretched hand as Morticia, Wednesday, and Pugsley formed a tight circle around them. "This is outrageous." Fudge's voice came from somewhere in the purple haze. "Orders, stop them." "Minister," came Morticia's serene voice through the smoke, "perhaps we should continue this discussion at a more neutral location. May I suggest Gringotts?" Gomez rang the bell, and Harry felt a powerful hook-like sensation behind his navel. The world spun in a kaleidoscope of color, and the ministry chamber vanished from sight. They landed seconds later in a marble-floored room dominated by a large conference table. Ornate goblin weapons and artwork decorated the walls, and a massive chandelier of gold and crystal hung from the ceiling. "Gringotts diplomatic chamber," Gomez explained, straightening his suit. "Neutral territory by ancient treaty. The ministry cannot enter without goblin permission." That was. Harry took a deep breath, steadying himself after the magical transport. "Will they come after us?" "Undoubtedly," Morticia said calmly. "But not immediately. They'll need to navigate the diplomatic channels first, which gives us time to strengthen our position." Grimjaw appeared with a pop, looking remarkably unruffled for someone who had just participated in what amounted to a courthouse escape. "The ministry is in quite the uproar," he reported with obvious satisfaction. "Minister Fudge is demanding immediate access to Gringotts, which Director Ragnarok has politely declined pending proper treaty protocols." "Excellent," Gomez declared. "Now we negotiate from a position of strength." "Are we in trouble?" Harry asked uncertainly. "Legally? Not at all," Gomez assured him. "The Wisengamot's decision is binding, and Fudge's attempted intervention was improper." "Politically? Oh my, yes. Delightfully so. Father enjoys political crises," Wednesday explained flatly to Harry. "He collects them like some people collect stamps." "But now what?" Harry persisted. "We can't stay in Gringotts forever." "Indeed not," Morticia agreed. "Which is why we must create a solution that satisfies all parties, or at least renders them equally dissatisfied, which is often more realistic in diplomacy." Gomez paced energetically, ideas practically visible in the air around him. "We need leverage. Something Fudge wants more than he wants to control Harry's placement." He snapped his fingers. "Publicity. Politicians fear bad press more than curses." "Rita Skeeter seemed quite interested in our story," Morticia noted. "And the memory evidence presented today would make for compelling front-page material." "Perfect." Gomez turned to Grimjaw. "Can you arrange an exclusive interview with the Daily Prophet? Make it clear we're willing to provide pensive memories of today's events, including the minister's attempt to overrule the Wisengamot's decision." The goblin's teeth gleamed in a predatory smile. "With pleasure. The bank maintains a policy of strict neutrality in wizarding politics, but as your legal representative, I'm merely facilitating communication." "And perhaps," Morticia suggested, "we should draft a formal international complaint to the ICW regarding Britain's treatment of the boy who lived." "I believe the Americans, French, and several African magical nations would take great interest in such a matter." "Political blackmail," Wednesday observed with obvious approval. "Mother and father are excellent teachers." Harry watched this rapid strategizing with growing amazement. The Addams family was unlike anyone he'd ever encountered, facing down the highest authorities of Wizarding Britain with cheerful confidence and seemingly enjoying every moment of the conflict. "Won't this just make them angrier?" he asked. "Undoubtedly," Gomez confirmed happily. "But angry opponents make mistakes. Besides, this isn't about anger, it's about consequences. Fudge needs to understand that attempting to control you comes with political costs he cannot afford." For the next hour, they worked on their counter-strategy. Grimjaw arranged for Rita Skeeter to be escorted to a private Gringotts meeting room for an exclusive interview. Morticia drafted an eloquent letter to the International Confederation of Wizards expressing grave concerns about the British Ministry's handling of the boy who lives welfare. Pugsley helpfully offered to create a distraction by setting off more smoke bombs in the Ministry atrium, an idea his parents gently redirected toward less explosive options. Harry found himself included in every discussion, his input sought and valued in a way the Dursleys had never considered. It was a novel experience having adults actually listen to him. "Your comfort is paramount in all this," Morticia assured him. "If at any point you'd prefer a different approach, you need only say so." "I just want to be sure I never have to go back to the Dursleys," Harry said firmly. "On that, we are in complete agreement," Gomez declared. "And I'd stake my favorite sword on it never happening." Just as Rita Skeeter was being escorted in, a goblin messenger arrived with news that Albus Dumbledore was requesting a meeting. Without ministry representatives, the messenger specified. "He comes in his capacity as head of the Wizengamot, not as Hogwarts headmaster." Gomez and Morticia exchanged glances. "Interesting distinction," Morticia noted. "He's distancing himself from Fudge's actions." "Show him in," Gomez decided. "But hold Miss Skeeter in readiness. Let's hear what the good wizard has to say before we proceed with the nuclear option of tabloid journalism." Dumbledore arrived moments later, looking remarkably composed despite the chaos they'd left behind at the Ministry. His eyes twinkled as he surveyed the Addams family and Harry gathered around the conference table. "A dramatic exit," he commented mildly. "Minister Fudge is still coughing up purple smoke, I believe." "Harmless," Pugsley assured him quickly. "Just concentrated Peruvian instant darkness powder with a color enhancement. Wears off in an hour or two." "Ingenious," Dumbledore nodded approvingly before turning serious. "I've come to offer a compromise that might resolve our current, diplomatic impasse." "We're all ears," Gomez invited, gesturing to an empty chair. "Though I must warn you, compromise isn't an Addams family specialty. We tend toward the dramatically absolute." "So I've noticed," Dumbledore said dryly. "Nevertheless, I believe we share a common goal, Harry's welfare, even if we disagree on the means." He sat and steepled his fingers thoughtfully. "I propose the following: the temporary guardianship stands as the Wizengamot decided. However, to address the Ministry's security concerns, Harry will spend the remaining summer weeks at a secure location in Britain before departing for Hogwarts. During school holidays, he may visit the Addams residence with appropriate security measures in place." "And who determines what security measures are appropriate?" Morticia asked pointedly. "A fair question," Dumbledore acknowledged. "I suggest a joint protocol developed by yourselves, myself, and a senior Auror of unquestionable integrity, perhaps Madame Bones." Gomez twirled his mustache thoughtfully. "And the Ministry Observer Clause?" "Would remain, but with the stipulation that the observer be approved by all parties, not appointed unilaterally by the Ministry." Harry spoke up. "What about the secure location for the rest of summer? Where would that be?" "I own a property protected by the Fidelius Charm, a powerful concealment spell. It currently serves as headquarters for a certain organization dedicated to Harry's protection. He would be safe there, while remaining in Britain where the Ministry can be assured of his well-being." "This organization," Morticia inquired delicately. "Would it happen to be the same one that fought against Voldemort during the last Wizarding War?" Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly. "You are well informed, Mrs. Addams. We make it a point to know the major players in any magical conflict," she replied. The Addams family has, historically aligned interests, shall we say. Indeed. Dumbledore turned to Harry. The choice, ultimately, should be yours, Harry. The legal right to guardianship has been established, but your comfort and preferences matter. Harry looked from Dumbledore to the Addams family, considering. Part of him wanted nothing more than to leave Britain immediately with these strange but supportive people who had fought so hard for him in just one day. Another part recognized the wisdom in Dumbledore's compromise. I'd like to get to know both, he decided finally. I could stay at this secure place for the rest of summer, then go to Hogwarts as planned. During holidays, I could visit the Addams family. That way I can decide what feels right for the long term. Gomez beamed proudly. A diplomatic solution from one so young. You've got natural Addams cunning, my boy. Are these terms acceptable to you, Mr. and Mrs. Addams? Dumbledore asked. Gomez and Morticia conferred briefly with a series of significant looks and slight gestures that somehow constituted a complete conversation. We find the compromise reasonable, Morticia announced. With two additions: first, we wish to enhance the security protocols at this safe house with certain Addams family protective measures. Second, we require weekly communication with Harry to ensure his continued well-being. Agreed, Dumbledore said promptly. And in return, might I ask that you refrain from providing Ms. Skeeter with the more inflammatory details of today's events? Ah, the press negotiations. Gomez chuckled. We'll limit our comments to expressing satisfaction with the Wisengamot's decision regarding Harry's mistreatment by the Dursleys. No mention of Minister Fudge's overzealous intervention. Generous, Dumbledore acknowledged with a slight smile. I believe Minister Fudge will find those terms acceptable, particularly when presented as the alternative to international embarrassment. The agreements were formalized with surprising speed, with Grimjaw overseeing the drafting of the necessary documents. Within hours, the crisis had been diffused. Minister Fudge, appearing somewhat subdued, and still occasionally emitting puffs of purple smoke, grudgingly accepted the compromise, particularly after Dumbledore pointed out the political advantages of being seen to support improved conditions for the boy who lived. As evening approached, preparations were made for Harry's transfer to the secure location, number 12 Grimmauld Place, as Dumbledore privately informed them. Grimmauld Place. Morticia's eyebrows rose elegantly. The ancestral Black family home. How interesting that you have access to it, given Sirius Black's status. A complex legal arrangement, Dumbledore replied vaguely. Though in light of today's revelations regarding Mr. Black's magical godfather bond, perhaps one that will require re-examination. As they prepared to depart, Gomez pulled Harry aside for a private word. Well, my boy, not quite the clean getaway I'd envisioned, but a satisfactory first skirmish in what promises to be an entertaining custody campaign. He placed both hands on Harry's shoulders. Remember, you're under Addams' protection now, regardless of physical location. The family never abandons its own. Even though I'm not really an Addams? Harry asked. Nonsense. Family is more than blood, it's a shared appreciation for the unusual, the macabre, the misunderstood. Gomez declared. Besides, you've shown true Addams spirit today, facing down authority figures, participating in a dramatic escape, negotiating with ancient wizards. You're a natural. Harry smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with magic. Thank you. For everything. No thanks needed. This is merely the beginning of a beautiful and bizarre friendship. Gomez handed Harry a small object that resembled an ornate pocket watch. A two-way communication device, far more reliable than owls for emergencies. Simply open it and speak my name. Morticia joined them, adding her own parting wisdom. Remember, Harry, what others see as strange or frightening in you is often your greatest strength. The Addams family has thrived for centuries by embracing what society fears. Wednesday approached next, her solemn expression unchanged. I've prepared a defensive package for you, she said, handing Harry a small black pouch. The vial contains extract of Devil's Snare. 3 drops will paralyze an adult for approximately 17 minutes. The powder induces temporary blindness. Use them wisely. Thanks, Harry said, accepting the pouch carefully. Pugsley's farewell gift was predictably more explosive, a set of what he called emergency distraction devices that Gomez quickly inspected and declared mostly non-lethal before allowing Harry to keep them. As they prepared to part ways, Harry to Grimmauld Place with Dumbledore, the Addams family to their London accommodations before returning to America, Gomez made one final dramatic declaration: "This is not goodbye, merely intermission in our grand performance." Act 2 begins at Christmas holidays, when you'll experience a true Addams family celebration, complete with the traditional Yule Beast hunt and Great Aunt Lavinia's animate gingerbread men rebellion. Harry found himself genuinely looking forward to it. With final farewells exchanged, Harry departed with Dumbledore, his life irrevocably changed in ways he was only beginning to understand. Behind him, the Addams family watched with varying expressions, Gomez with enthusiastic anticipation, Morticia with serene calculation, Wednesday with solemn intensity, and Pugsley with explosive interest. "Cara mia," Gomez said as Harry disappeared from view, "I believe we've just adopted the most famous wizard child in Britain." "Indeed, mon cher," Morticia replied. "How wonderfully complicated our lives have become." "Just the way we like them," Gomez declared, pressing fervent kisses to her arm. "Just the way we like them." In the days that followed, the wizarding world buzzed with the news. The Daily Prophet's headline screamed, "Boy who lived rescued from Muggle abuse." American magical family wins temporary custody in dramatic Wisengamot hearing. Rita Skeeter's article, while somewhat restrained compared to her usual sensationalism, thanks to the negotiated agreement, still painted a vivid picture of Harry's mistreatment and the Addams family's dramatic intervention. The accompanying photograph showed Gomez with his arm protectively around Harry's shoulders, both looking solemnly at the camera before Gomez broke into his characteristic manic grin. Public opinion swung wildly. Many were outraged that the national hero had been so poorly treated. Some expressed concern about an American family taking custody of such an important British wizard. Others wondered what it all meant for the future of the boy who lived. But at number 12 Grimmauld Place, as Harry settled into his first-ever proper bedroom in a house filled with members of the Order of the Phoenix who regarded him with a mix of curiosity and protective concern, he found himself thinking not about public opinion or political ramifications, but about Christmas holidays at the Addams mansion, animate gingerbread men, and what it might be like to finally have a real family, even if they were, by anyone's standards, the strangest family imaginable. For the first time in his life, Harry Potter had options. He had advocates. He had people fighting for him, not against him. And somewhere in a London magical hotel, Gomez Addams was already planning their next move in what he enthusiastically called the Great Potter Custody Adventure, while Morticia researched the unusual magical connection to Harry's scar. Wednesday drafted legal precedents for their eventual full custody claim, and Pugsley tested increasingly colorful smoke bombs, just in case. The wizarding world would never be the same. Neither would Harry Potter. And the Addams family wouldn't have it any other way. Chapter 3, Blood and Magic. The battered gargoyle knocker stared at Harry with unblinking stone eyes. He hesitated, his hand hovering inches from the massive front door of the Addams family mansion. Behind him, a cab driver hastily threw his trunk onto the gravel driveway, already backing toward his vehicle. "You sure this is the right place, kid?" the driver called, eyeing the mansion's Gothic spires and the twisted, seemingly dead trees that surrounded it. Thunder rumbled ominously overhead despite the otherwise clear winter sky. "Yeah, this is it," Harry said, unable to keep the grin off his face. "Your funeral," the driver muttered, jumping into his cab and speeding away with squealing tires. Harry turned back to the door, gathering his courage. His first term at Hogwarts had been a whirlwind of classes, new friends, and the lingering strangeness of being the boy who lived. Now he faced his Christmas holidays with the Addams family, his legal guardians for almost 6 months, though he'd only spent a few days with them before heading to school. Before he could knock, the door creaked open on its own. Master Harry, intoned a towering, deathly pale man with sunken eyes and a voice that seemed to emerge from a crypt. "We've been expecting you." "You must be Lurch," Harry said, recalling Gomez's descriptions. "Nice to meet you." Lurch groaned, taking Harry's trunk with one massive hand as if it weighed nothing. Harry stepped into a foyer dominated by a massive stuffed bear reared up on its hind legs, claws extended. Except the bear blinked at him and growled softly. "Oh, he's not stuffed," Harry realized aloud. "Just lazy," came Wednesday's flat voice as she appeared at the top of the grand staircase. "Father won him in a card game with a Romanian monster hunter. He mostly sleeps now, but occasionally mauls unwelcome visitors." "Useful," Harry commented, earning the first almost smile he'd ever seen from Wednesday. "The family awaits in the conservatory," she said, descending the stairs. "Pugsley wanted to greet you with a ceremonial explosion, but Mother thought it might be traumatic for your first 5 minutes here. Maybe save it for after dinner?" Harry suggested. Wednesday nodded solemnly. "I told him the same. Anticipation enhances explosive experiences." She led Harry through the mansion, past walls covered in strange weapons, peculiar artwork, and several portraits whose eyes genuinely followed them. Unlike the magical portraits at Hogwarts, these didn't speak, they just watched with predatory interest. The conservatory turned out to be a massive glass-domed room filled with the strangest collection of plants Harry had ever seen, and after herbology classes, that was saying something. Tall, carnivorous-looking specimens snapped at the air as they passed. Vines with purple flowers retreated from their footsteps. What appeared to be a rosebush oozed a red substance that definitely wasn't sap. "Harry!" Gomez exclaimed, spotting him from across the room. He vaulted over a writhing plant to land directly in front of Harry, seizing his hand for an enthusiastic shake. "Welcome to the ancestral Addams mansion. What do you think? Creepy enough? We had the termites add some structural instability to the east wing just for that authentic haunted feeling." "It's amazing," Harry said honestly. "Makes the Dursleys' house seem even more boring than I remembered." "The highest compliment." Gomez beamed, clapping him on the shoulder. "Morticia. The boy has arrived." Morticia glided over from where she'd been pruning, or perhaps aggravating, a collection of thorny black plants. "Harry, welcome to our home." Her red lips curved into a genuine smile. "I trust your journey was pleasant. No one tried to kidnap or assassinate you?" No. Just a normal train and cab ride." "How disappointingly mundane," she sighed. "Never mind. There's always tomorrow." Pugsley bounded up next, a suspicious scorch mark on his left eyebrow. "Harry. Wait till you see what I've been working on. Exploding Christmas crackers that actually explode. Like, take down a wall explode." "Perhaps save the demonstration for the back gardens," Morticia suggested gently. After Harry's settled in. "You'll be in the East Tower bedroom," Gomez informed Harry. "Traditionally reserved for honored guests and occasional exorcists. The last paranormal investigator who stayed there only screamed for 3 nights before fleeing. We consider that a hospitality success." "Is it haunted?" Harry asked, uncertain whether he should sound hopeful or concerned. "Just minimally," Morticia assured him. "Great-Uncle Cornelius sometimes wanders through the walls, but he's quite harmless unless you're a tax collector. The bloodstains on the floor are purely decorative, refreshed them just last week. Don't worry about the chains in the closet," Pugsley added helpfully. "They're just for atmosphere. The dungeon has the functional restraints." Harry couldn't help laughing. After facing down Professor Quirrell and Voldemort at the end of term, the Addams family's peculiar brand of macabre hospitality felt almost comforting in its straightforward strangeness. "I'm sure it'll be great," he said. "Definitely better than a cupboard under the stairs." "The lowest possible bar," Wednesday commented. "Father, didn't you promise to show Harry the family vault after his arrival?" Excellent memory, Wednesday. Gomez checked his pocket watch. Perfect timing too, the Vault Guardian only tries to devour intruders between 3 and 5 p.m. Educational opportunity. While Lurch took Harry's belongings to his room, Gomez led him deeper into the mansion, down a spiraling stone staircase that seemed to descend far further than the house's foundation should have allowed. Morticia accompanied them, holding a candelabra whose flames burned an unnatural blue color. The Addams family vault predates the mansion itself, she explained as they descended. Built during the medieval period when witch hunts made secure storage essential. The magic protecting it has been layered by generations of Addamses, each adding their own particular flair for the lethal. Gomez added proudly. Great-grandmother Desdemona contributed the quicksand trigger on the third entryway. Cousin Slosh added the poison dart mechanism. My own humble contribution was the Hungarian horntail scale reaction, step on the wrong stone and whoosh. Instant cremation. Don't worry, Morticia assured Harry, noting his wide eyes. Family members are immune. And as our ward, you'll be recognized by the vault's magic too. Probably. They reached the bottom of the stairs, where an enormous iron door blocked the passage. Carved into its surface were hundreds of intricate runes, many of which seemed to shift and change as Harry looked at them. Blood magic, Gomez explained, producing an ornate dagger. Ancient stuff. Frowned upon by modern magical authorities, but tremendously effective. He pricked his finger without hesitation and pressed it to the center of the door. The blood sizzled on contact, and the runes glowed red, spiraling outward from Gomez's finger. The massive door swung open silently. Harry, Morticia said gently, we'd like to add your blood to the family protections. Not just for vault access, but for the mansion's overall security. There's a reason the Addams family has survived centuries of persecution, our ancestral magic recognizes and protects our own. Harry hesitated only briefly before nodding. After facing Voldemort, additional protection sounded like a very good idea. What do I need to do? Just a small offering, Gomez handed him the dagger. 3 drops on the inner threshold, while thinking about safety and belonging. The blade was surprisingly warm in Harry's hand. He carefully pricked his finger and let 3 drops fall onto the stone threshold. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the drops of blood seemed to sink into the stone, which briefly glowed with the same runes from the door. A strange sensation washed over Harry, not unpleasant, but powerful, like being submerged in warm water that somehow flowed through him rather than around him. The mansion itself seemed to exhale, the air pressure shifting subtly. Extraordinary, Morticia murmured, watching the stones absorb Harry's blood. The house recognizes him strongly. Look at the reaction intensity, Gomez. Indeed. Haven't seen such a response since Wednesday's blood incorporation. Gomez looked delighted. The old magic acknowledges you, my boy. Welcome to the protection of House Addams. They proceeded into the vault itself, a vast chamber filled with treasures both mundane and magical. Gold coins and jewels shared space with artifacts that hummed with power. Weapons hung on the walls alongside strange devices Harry couldn't identify. Books and scrolls filled one entire section, some chained to their shelves, others floating slightly above them. The family treasury, Gomez announced proudly. Accumulated over centuries of adventuring, trading, and occasional grave robbing, though we prefer the term archaeological liberation. Harry wandered the chamber in amazement, careful not to touch anything without permission. This is incredible. I had no idea families kept vaults like this. I've only seen the one at Gringotts. Most magical families don't, Morticia explained. The Addams' approach to wealth management has always been unconventional. Goblins handle our liquid assets, but family heirlooms and magical items remain under our direct protection. Speaking of which, Gomez strode to a particular section of the vault and retrieved a small wooden box. A little welcome gift for you, Harry. Been in the family for generations, waiting for the right recipient. He opened the box to reveal a curious amulet, a silver disc inscribed with runes similar to those on the vault door, suspended on a black cord. The amulet of shielding, Gomez explained. Created by my great-great-great-grandfather Alphonse Adams during the Goblin Rebellion of 1612. Detects harmful intent and strengthens natural magical barriers. Given your history with dark wizards trying to kill you, seemed practical. Harry accepted the gift with genuine gratitude. This is brilliant. Thank you. Try it on, Morticia encouraged. The amulet needs to attune to your magical signature. Harry slipped the cord over his head. The moment the amulet touched his chest, it grew warm, and the runes briefly glowed green. Simultaneously, his famous scar tingled unpleasantly. Fascinating reaction, Morticia observed, leaning closer to examine Harry's forehead. The scar appears, agitated by the amulet's magic. Makes sense, Gomez nodded. Curse scar meets protective magic, bound to be some interaction. How does it feel, Harry? A bit strange, Harry admitted. But not bad. Like the amulet is, pushing against something in the scar. Morticia and Gomez exchanged significant glances. We should discuss that scar properly, Morticia said. After our research these past months, we have some theories about its magical properties. Theories that Dumbledore might not appreciate us sharing, Gomez added, twirling his mustache thoughtfully. But knowledge is power, and you deserve to understand what you're carrying around on your forehead. They returned upstairs to find Pugsley setting up what appeared to be a miniature cannon in the main hall, while Wednesday carefully arranged porcelain figurines as targets. Indoor artillery practice? Gomez asked approvingly. Christmas present test run, Pugsley explained. Wanted to make sure it works before wrapping it for Harry. Thoughtful. Gomez beamed. But perhaps save the demonstration for after dinner. We have important matters to discuss first. Dinner in the Addams household proved to be an adventure in itself. The long table in the formal dining room was set with silver candlesticks holding black candles, and place settings that appeared to date from several different centuries. Thing, the disembodied hand that Harry had heard about but not yet met, scurried around adjusting napkins and pouring drinks. The food, to Harry's relief, was surprisingly normal, if unusually presented. The roast came garnished with decorative bones arranged in a tiny skeleton. The soup changed colors as it cooled. The bread had been shaped to resemble various internal organs, anatomically correct down to the ventricles of the heart-shaped rolls. Grandmama wanted to prepare her special toadstool surprise, Morticia explained as they ate, but I suggested we ease you into Addams' cuisine gradually. Shame she's visiting cousin ITT this week, Gomez added between enthusiastic bites. She'd love to test her experimental potions on a fresh subject, strictly beneficial ones, of course. After the meal, they gathered in the library, a magnificent two-story room with towering bookshelves, rolling ladders, and reading nooks situated in window seats and hidden alcoves. A massive fireplace dominated one wall, above which hung a portrait of a particularly severe-looking Addams ancestor whose painted eyes occasionally blinked. Now, about that scar, Gomez began, settling into a high-backed leather chair. Morticia has been researching curse scars and magical connections since our first meeting. Show him what you've discovered, cara mia. Morticia opened an ancient tome bound in what appeared to be some kind of reptile skin. Most curse scars are simply magical injuries, remnants of dark magic that resist conventional healing. But yours is different, Harry. It maintains an active magical signature. She turned the book to show Harry an illustration of magical energy patterns. This is a standard curse scar's magical residue, notice how it's static, like a magical fossil. But based on the readings from the bloodline verification orb at the ministry, yours shows this pattern instead. The second illustration showed energy tendrils extending outward, connected to something beyond the boundaries of the drawing. A living connection, Morticia explained, her voice clinical despite the disturbing implication. Something of Voldemort remains magically tethered to you through that scar. Harry felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. Something like, "What happened with Quirrell? Is Voldemort possessing me too?" "No, no," Gomez reassured quickly. "Nothing so direct or we'd have detected it immediately. This is more subtle, like an echo or a fragment. Dumbledore must suspect this," Morticia continued. His reaction to the orb's revelation was too controlled for genuine surprise. "He knows something about your connection to Voldemort that he hasn't shared." Harry thought back to his conversation with Dumbledore in the hospital wing after the confrontation with Quirrell. The headmaster had been evasive about certain questions, particularly regarding why Voldemort had tried to kill him as a baby. "So what does this mean?" Harry asked. "Is there a way to break the connection?" "That's what we've been researching," Gomez said. "Traditional curse breaking won't work because it's not a standard curse. But the Addams Family Library contains texts on soul magic that might provide answers." "Soul magic?" Harry repeated uneasily. "Dark stuff," Gomez acknowledged, unusually serious. "Not the fun kind of dark like man-eating plants or exploding cuff links, but the genuinely dangerous kind that most wizards avoid entirely. We believe," Morticia said carefully, "that when Voldemort's killing curse rebounded, it may have created an unintended magical effect, possibly transferring a fragment of his magical essence into the wound it created." Harry felt slightly sick. "You mean I have a piece of Voldemort, in me?" "A theory only," Morticia clarified. "But one that would explain the continued connection and certain abilities you might have developed." Harry thought immediately of the Parseltongue incident during dueling club, which had led to weeks of whispers and frightened glances from his schoolmates. "Like talking to snakes," he said quietly. "I can speak Parseltongue. Everyone thinks it means I'm dark." "Nonsense," Gomez declared. "Parseltongue is just another magical language. The Addams family has several snake speakers in our history. Great Aunt Slytherin could command entire pits of vipers, made for absolutely spectacular garden parties." Despite the gravity of the discussion, Harry felt a rush of gratitude. The Addams family didn't judge his abilities as dark or frightening. If anything, they found them interesting, even admirable. "The good news," Morticia continued, "is that the amulet Gomez gave you may help. Its protective magic naturally resists foreign magical influences. That would explain the reaction you felt, the amulet pushing against the connection in your scar. Not a cure," Gomez cautioned, "but a shield, at least. And with continued research, we might find a more permanent solution." "Does Dumbledore know you're researching this?" Harry asked. "We haven't discussed it directly," Morticia admitted. "Our relationship with the esteemed headmaster remains diplomatic. He respects our temporary guardianship but clearly has his own plans regarding your future. Plans we're cheerfully disrupting at every opportunity." Gomez added with a grin. "The Ministry observer visits have been particularly entertaining. The first one fled after Pugsley's tarantula collection escaped into his briefcase. The second lasted longer, but developed a mysterious rash after accepting Wednesday's offer of homemade cookies." Harry laughed despite the seriousness of the previous discussion. "So what happens when the year is up? Will I have to go back to the Dursleys?" "Absolutely not," Gomez stated firmly. "The evidence of their mistreatment is irrefutable. But there will likely be a final custody hearing to determine your permanent placement. We've been building our case," Morticia explained. "Documenting your progress since leaving the Dursleys, gathering character references from your professors at Hogwarts. Even Professor Snape provided a statement acknowledging your marginally acceptable performance despite your tendency toward Potterish rule-breaking." "High praise from Snape," Harry noted wryly. "Indeed," Gomez agreed. "Though our strongest argument remains the magical protection angle. The blood wards at Privet Drive were failing due to lack of genuine familial bonds. Here, with the Addams family magic recognizing you, you have protection that's both powerful and nurturing." Their conversation was interrupted by a small explosion from somewhere deeper in the house, followed by Pugsley's voice calling, "Nothing's on fire that shouldn't be." Perhaps we should continue this discussion tomorrow, Morticia suggested. You must be tired from your journey, Harry, and the children are clearly eager to include you in their activities. Besides, Gomez added, jumping to his feet, tomorrow we begin your proper Adams education. Fencing lessons before breakfast, followed by ancestral magic studies, and then, weather permitting, man-eating plant identification in the greenhouse. Harry found himself genuinely looking forward to all of it. His room in the East Tower turned out to be spectacular, a circular chamber with a four-poster bed draped in deep green velvet, Gothic furnishings that somehow managed to be both imposing and comfortable, and tall windows offering views of the mansion's sprawling grounds. As promised, bloodstains decorated the floor in artistic patterns, though Harry strongly suspected they were painted on rather than genuine. A soft knock at his door revealed Wednesday, still in her black dress but now carrying what appeared to be a stuffed spider the size of a small dog. "This is Homer," she said, holding out the spider. "He watches over guests while they sleep. Some find his multiple eyes comforting." Harry accepted Homer, noting that despite being stuffed, the arachnid felt strangely warm. "Thanks, Wednesday. That's thoughtful. If you hear wailing in the night, it's just Great-Uncle Cornelius. He died in this room, nothing traumatic, just a heart attack during a particularly exciting chapter of his memoir writing. He's harmless unless you sleep with the window open on a full moon." With that peculiar reassurance, she left Harry to settle in for his first night as a proper houseguest of the Addams family. Despite the strange surroundings, or perhaps because of them, Harry slept better than he had in months. No nightmares of Voldemort or Quirrell disturbed his rest. When he woke, it was to bright winter sunshine streaming through the tower windows and the distant sound of metal clashing against metal. He dressed quickly and followed the sounds to discover Gomez and Pugsley engaged in an enthusiastic fencing match in the main hall. Gomez lunged and parried with spectacular flourishes, while Pugsley defended himself admirably despite his stocky build. "Ah, Harry," Gomez called, not breaking his rhythm. "Excellent timing. Grab a foil from the wall, your first lesson begins immediately." For the next hour, Harry received a crash course in basic fencing. To his surprise, he took to it naturally, his seeker reflexes translated well to the quick movements required. "Magnificent," Gomez declared after Harry successfully executed a simple attack. "You have the Addams instinct for armed combat. With practice, you'll be disemboweling opponents in no time." "Metaphorically, I hope," Harry laughed. Of course, Gomez agreed, though his expression suggested he wasn't entirely opposed to the literal interpretation either. After breakfast, which featured pancakes shaped like bats and syrup that occasionally tried to crawl back up the bottle, the day unfolded in a whirlwind of bizarre but entertaining activities. Morticia taught Harry about the carnivorous plants in the conservatory, many of which seemed strangely affectionate toward him after his blood incorporation into the family magic. The Tentacula typically tries to strangle newcomers, she noted with approval as the plant gently patted Harry's head with a vine. "It seems to have accepted you completely." Wednesday offered to show Harry her collection of rare poisons, categorized by speed of effect and aesthetic quality of death. Pugsley demonstrated his latest explosive creations in the extensive gardens behind the mansion, creating craters that Lurch stoically filled in without comment. After lunch, Gomez took Harry to what he called the ancestral magic room, a circular chamber in the west wing with a stone floor inscribed with intricate patterns. "Modern wizardry focuses too much on wands and specific incantations," Gomez explained, removing his shoes and instructing Harry to do the same. "Addams' magic is older, more intuitive. It comes from blood, intent, and connection to the familial power that's accumulated over generations." "Like the blood wards Dumbledore set up at the Dursleys?" Harry asked. "Similar principle, vastly different execution," Gomez clarified. "Dumbledore's wards used your blood connection to your aunt but lacked the vital component of mutual acceptance and love. Real family magic requires genuine bonds, emotional as well as biological." "But I'm not actually related to you," Harry pointed out. "Except maybe distantly," through that black family connection you mentioned. Blood is just the starting point, Gomez said, stepping into the center of the circular pattern. The incorporation ritual we performed at the vault began the process of connecting you to Adam's family magic. Over time, as you live with us and form genuine bonds, that connection strengthens. He gestured for Harry to join him in the center of the circle. Stand here and close your eyes. Feel the magic in the floor beneath your feet. It recognizes you now, reach out to it with your mind. Harry did as instructed, expecting to feel foolish. Instead, he immediately sensed something, a deep, thrumming power beneath the stone, pulsing like a heartbeat. It felt ancient but vibrant, dark but not malevolent, similar to how the forbidden forest at Hogwarts seemed dangerous yet alive with natural magic. I can feel it, he whispered, surprised. Excellent. Gomez sounded delighted. Now, imagine it rising through your feet, up your legs, into your core. Family magic strengthens from within. As Harry concentrated, the sensation grew stronger, a warmth spreading through him, similar to what he'd felt when adding his blood to the vault protections, but more focused. When he opened his eyes, he gasped. The circular patterns on the floor were glowing softly, and thin tendrils of what looked like black mist rose from the inscribed lines, swirling around both him and Gomez. The family magic responds to you, Gomez observed, looking both pleased and intrigued. Normally it takes months for non-blood additions to achieve such resonance. Your magical core must be exceptionally compatible with Adam's energy. Is that good? Harry asked, watching the misty tendrils curl around his arms. Good, unexpected, and potentially useful, Gomez replied. Especially regarding the foreign magic in your scar. If Adam's family magic recognizes you so strongly, it may help shield you from Voldemort's influence. They spent another hour in the ancestral magic room, with Gomez teaching Harry basic exercises to strengthen his connection to the family's magical core. Unlike the structured spells taught at Hogwarts, these techniques focused on intent and magical intuition, feeling the flow of power rather than directing it with specific words or wand movements. By dinner time, Harry was exhausted but exhilarated. He'd learned more about different types of magic in one day with the Addams family than in months of formal classes at Hogwarts. You're a natural, Morticia commented at dinner, after Gomez recounted Harry's progress. The family magic rarely responds so quickly to outsiders. It suggests your magical affinity may be more aligned with ancient practices than modern wizardry. Which makes sense, Wednesday added in her matter-of-fact way, given that you survived a killing curse as an infant. Standard magical theory says that should be impossible, but ancient magic often operates outside conventional limitations. The implications for your protection are significant, Morticia continued. If the Addams family magic has indeed accepted you as one of our own, it extends certain safeguards. Like what? Harry asked. Ancestral watchfulness, Gomez explained between enthusiastic bites of what appeared to be squid ink pasta with actual tentacles. Adam's ancestors maintain a certain presence in family magic even after death. They take an interest in the welfare of their descendants, sometimes intervening in matters of life and death. You mean like ghosts? Harry asked, thinking of the Hogwarts spirits. More elemental than that, Morticia clarified. Not conscious entities you can converse with, but magical echoes that respond to threats against family members. It's why no Addams has ever been successfully assassinated, though many have tried throughout the centuries. Great-Uncle Fester survived 17 assassination attempts in one weekend during that business with the Moldavian Count, Gomez recalled fondly. The family magic turned the poison to wine, redirected the arrows, and transformed the quicksand into particularly lumpy pudding. Harry couldn't help smiling at the thought of having such unusual protection. After years of feeling utterly vulnerable at the Dursleys, the idea of an entire family's magic, living and ancestral, watching over him felt incredibly comforting. The rest of the Christmas holidays passed in a blur of bizarre but wonderful experiences. Harry received his first proper Christmas presents, a set of throwing knives from Gomez, start small, work up to swords. A rare book on defensive potions from Morticia, Beginner's Explosion Kit from Pugsley, and from Wednesday, a small glass vial containing what she described as the distilled essence of nightmares, for emergency use only. He sent gifts to Ron and Hermione along with letters describing the strangest, and safest to mention, aspects of life with the Addams family. Hermione's reply was predictably concerned but curious about the ancient magic he was learning, while Ron's response consisted mainly of variations on, "Blimey, Harry," and, "Are they trying to kill you or teach you?" On New Year's Eve, the entire household participated in what Gomez called the traditional Addams cleansing ritual, which involved each family member writing their regrets from the old year on parchment, then burning them in a bonfire while dancing around the flames and shouting dramatically in what might have been Latin but sounded suspiciously like gibberish to Harry's ears. "Cathartic, isn't it?" Gomez asked as they watched their parchments burn. Out with the old curses, in with the new catastrophes. As the end of the holidays approached, Harry found himself genuinely reluctant to return to Hogwarts, a complete reversal from his feelings about leaving the Dursleys. The Addams mansion, for all its strangeness, had quickly become more of a home than anywhere he'd ever lived. On his final evening before returning to school, Gomez called Harry into his study, a chaotic room filled with oddities, contraptions in various states of assembly, and a desk buried under parchments and peculiar artifacts. "I wanted a private word before you depart," Gomez said, unusually serious as he settled behind his desk. "Regarding the upcoming custody decision." Harry nodded, feeling a flutter of anxiety. The temporary arrangement would end in summer, and despite the Addams family's confidence, nothing was guaranteed. "Lucius Malfoy has been maneuvering behind the scenes," Gomez explained, shuffling through some papers. "Our sources in the ministry report he's been meeting frequently with Minister Fudge, likely attempting to influence the final decision." "Why would he care where I live?" Harry asked, though he had suspicions after his encounters with Draco Malfoy at school. "Politics, power, and possibly darker motivations," Gomez replied. "If Voldemort left a magical connection in your scar, his former followers might sense it. Malfoy claimed to be under the Imperius curse during the war, but few actually believe that." "You think he's still loyal to Voldemort?" "I think he serves his own interests first, which may align with his former masters." Gomez leaned forward. "Which brings me to a delicate question. During your confrontation with Quirrell and Voldemort, did anything unusual happen when you physically touched Quirrell?" Harry blinked in surprise. "How did you know about that?" "Dumbledore's report to the governors mentioned unusual protective magic, but was deliberately vague on details. Given what we know about your scar and your mother's sacrifice, I have a theory." "My hands burned him," Harry admitted. "When I touched his skin, it blistered and crumbled. Dumbledore said it was because of my mother's love, that her sacrifice created protection in my blood that Voldemort couldn't touch." Gomez nodded thoughtfully. "Blood protection, ancient and powerful magic. It's likely what powered the wards at your aunt's home, however weakly. But here's what interests me, since incorporating your blood into the Addams family protections, that same magic now resonates with our ancestral defenses." "Meaning what, exactly?" "Meaning," Gomez's eyes gleamed with excitement, "your mother's protective sacrifice may have merged with Addams family magic, creating a hybrid protection stronger than either alone. That's likely why the family magic accepted you so quickly, it recognized the power in your blood as compatible with our own ancestral protections." He stood and paced energetically. "This gives us our strongest argument yet for permanent custody. Not only are you thriving in our care, but the magical protection your mother gave her life for actually functions better within the Addams family magical framework than it ever did with your non-magical relatives." Harry felt a surge of hope. "So at the final hearing, we'll demonstrate this magical resonance," Gomez confirmed. "It's not just about your happiness anymore, though that remains paramount. It's about your very survival. The blood protection that saved you from Voldemort once could be your shield again if properly nurtured within a magical family that genuinely cares for you." The confidence in Gomez's voice was reassuring, but Harry had learned enough about magical politics to know victory wasn't guaranteed. What if the ministry still says no? Gomez's expression turned mischievous. Then we moved to Plan B, legal adoption under American magical law, followed by diplomatic immunity claims, international custody treaties, and if all else fails, the ancient right of magical sanctuary that predates the ministry itself. He winked. The Addams family has evaded authorities of all kinds for centuries, Harry. We're rather good at it. Harry returned to Hogwarts the next day with mixed emotions, eager to see his friends again but missing the chaotic warmth of the Addams household. He wore the amulet of shielding beneath his robes, finding comfort in its steady, warm presence against his chest. Life at school resumed its normal pattern, though Harry now viewed his magical education through a slightly different lens after his exposure to the Addams family's ancestral practices. He found himself paying more attention in history of magic, searching Professor Binns' dull lectures for mentions of older magical traditions that might relate to what he'd learned over the holidays. Hermione, naturally, was fascinated by his descriptions of Addams family magic. Blood incorporation rituals are considered borderline dark magic by ministry standards, she whispered during one library study session. But historically, most ancient families practiced them. It's only in the last century that they've fallen out of favor. The Addams family doesn't seem too concerned with what's considered dark or light, Harry replied. They care more about what works and what doesn't. That's actually a more historical approach to magic, Hermione admitted. The strict categorization of spells as dark or light is relatively modern. Ancient practitioners classified magic by purpose and intent rather than some inherent moral quality. Ron was less academically interested but thoroughly entertained by Harry's stories of life at the Addams mansion. Mental, the lot of them, he declared with obvious approval. But in a good way, sounds like. Better than those awful muggles you were with before. As winter gave way to spring, Harry maintained regular correspondence with the Addams family. Gomez sent enthusiastic letters filled with exclamation points and tales of outrageous family adventures. Morticia's elegant notes contained thoughtful questions about his studies and suggestions for complementary reading in ancient magical practices. Wednesday's rare communications were brief, macabre, and oddly touching in their directness. Pugsley mostly sent mysterious packages that Dumbledore politely intercepted after the first one released a cloud of harmless but dramatic purple smoke in the Great Hall during breakfast. In late April, Harry received a more serious letter from Gomez, informing him that the ministry had scheduled the final custody hearing for July 31, Harry's birthday. Symbolic timing, Gomez wrote. Likely Dumbledore's influence, he appreciates meaningful gestures. Preparations proceeding excellently. Malfoy continues his behind-the-scenes maneuvering, but we've countered with our own political chess moves. Morticia had tea with the head of the Department of Magical Family Services. The woman developed a curious appreciation for carnivorous plants afterward. Most supportive of our position now. As the school year wound toward its conclusion, Harry found himself increasingly anxious about the upcoming hearing. Despite the Addams family's confidence, the stakes felt enormous, the difference between a future with people who genuinely cared for him, however strangely they showed it, and returning to the wizarding world's control, possibly even back to the Dursleys if things went terribly wrong. On the final day of term, Dumbledore requested a meeting with Harry in his office. The headmaster greeted him warmly, offering tea and lemon drops as Harry settled into the chair across from his desk. I trust you've had a productive year, Harry, Dumbledore began, blue eyes twinkling over his half-moon spectacles. Despite the unfortunate business with Professor Quirrell. Yes, sir, Harry nodded. It's been educational. Indeed. Dumbledore's gaze lingered briefly on Harry's chest, where the amulet of shielding lay hidden beneath his robes. I understand the Addams family has been introducing you to some rather unconventional magical practices during your holidays with them. Harry tensed slightly. They've been teaching me about their family traditions, yes. Ancient magic is a fascinating field of study, Dumbledore acknowledged. Though one typically reserved for older students, given its complexities and potential dangers. They've been careful, Harry defended. Everything they've shown me has been about protection and connection to family magic. I don't doubt their intentions, Harry. Dumbledore steepled his fingers. The Addams family has a long and colorful history in the magical world. Eccentric, certainly, occasionally alarming to more conventional wizards, but never aligned with the truly dark forces that threaten our world. He paused, seeming to choose his next words carefully. However, I must express some concern about certain magical experiments, particularly those involving your mother's blood protection. Harry stared at the headmaster. How did you? I have my sources, Dumbledore said gently. Blood magic is powerful and unpredictable, Harry. Your mother's sacrifice created a protection that saved your life as a baby and again when you faced Professor Quirrell. Write the next chapter of the book. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.